All right, good morning, everybody. I would like to call this meeting to order and acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 and Dakota Nation's territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Marla Billinghurst. I will be chairing the meeting this morning. With me on the panel this morning are Mr. Neil Harden and Mr. Maurice Terrien. The secretary this morning is Ms. Kara Balshaw, and the assessor for the city is Mr. Arif Dust Mohammed. Sorry, did I?
No, that's good.
Okay, sorry if I mispronounced that. To the participants, do I need to go through the participant part?
I guess maybe just to be safe in case they are already.
Sure. Okay, to the participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the hearing. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg's Board of Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in, or you may affirm. Please be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony, followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. All right, Ms. Balshaw, could you please swear in the parties?
Yes. Mr. Assessor, for the record, can you please state your name?
Arif Dust Mohammed.
And do you affirm the evidence you will present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And Mr. Applicant, for the record, please state your name.
Trevor Smith.
Do you affirm the evidence you will present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, this morning we will be hearing items 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7 on the docket. So we will begin with item number 2 this morning. So, Mr. Assessor, when you are ready, please.
Sure. The property in question is for 630 Nairn Avenue. The roll number is 14093900300. Reference date is April 1st, 2018, and the roll year is 2022. Assessed value is $1,256,000. And I'm just going to go into the workup right now and let you know how we came up with that value. So there is 14,282 square feet of leasable area. Rent is assessed at $7.52. That gives us a total of $107,401. We're allowing for vacancy loss of 5%. That gives us an effective gross income of $102,031. Expenses are at 2% for shortfall, non-recoverable expenses are at 2%, and we're allowing $3.75 for a shortfall. That gives us an NOI of $97,312. We're using an overall cap rate of 7.15%. And that gives us a capitalized value of $1,361,007. This property was appealed at the Board of Revision for 2020, and the 2020 roll cycle goes into 2023. So we're going with the Board of Revision order that they when they ordered us to decrease the value to $1,256,000, and that's what we are assessing the value at. And I think Mr. Smith is just confirming the value.
Mr. Smith.
Yes, I'm just sitting in for Mr. Story today, and he's asked me to confirm the value and request a 54-1, please.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Harden, did you have any questions?
No.
Mr. Tarian?
No, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning.
And we do have the applicant on the remaining applications here as well, so I will bring them into the meeting room now.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I'm just gonna go get the docket. I seem to have left it on my desk. I'll be right back if that's okay.
Of course.
Morning, Mr. Neufeld.
Hi, I'm just changing something in my coffee machine. It just made a big mess.
Oh dear. I think everybody's here now, Madam Chair, if we want to proceed.
Could you please swear in Mr. Neufeld?
Yes.
Thank
Mr. Applicant, for the record, can you please state your name?
Hockey Neufeld?
Do you affirm the evidence you will present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You do?
Thank you.
Mr. Neufeld?
Yeah, sorry, I'm here. I'm just grabbing, I'm listening. I told you I made a mess.
We were too quick for you on the last one. You weren't ready.
Yeah, that's right. There's coffee all over the place here.
Okay, well,
I got it under control.
okay. So, Mr. Assessor, could you please proceed? When ready.
Okay.
Thank you.
Roll number 080058242000. Address is 75 Ames Road. Roll year is 2022. Reference date is April 1st, 2018. Assessed value is $3,284,000. It's an industrial warehouse. Number of buildings is 1. Number of premises is 1. It's got 1 story. Actual year built and effective year are both 2000. Wall height is 22 feet. Land area is 174,091 square feet. Plan area is 21,705 square feet. Gross area and leasable area is 25,645 square feet, and land to plan area is 8.02 to 1. On the following page, you'll notice that there is a net lease on the subject property at $10.58. On the following pages are rent comparables. So all comparables are industrial warehouses such as the subject. They're all located in the same market region as the subject. All leases are current in relation to the reference date, with the last comparable being sorry, my mistake. So all leases are current in relation to the reference date. Year built ranges from 1975 to 2008. Wall heights range from 20 feet to 26 feet. Leasable areas range from approximately 20,000 square feet to approximately 32,500 square feet. And net rents range from $7.11 per square feet to $8.81 per square feet. On the following pages are workup. So we're utilizing an overall net rental rate of $8.14 compared to the actual of $10.58. To be fair and equitable, we're allowing for 2% vacancy loss, even though there's been 0 vacancy since inception in 2000. We're allowing for a 2% non-recoverable expense and $3.75 for vacancy shortfall. This results in an NOI of $197,056. We're utilizing a cap rate of 6% to take into account the age, condition, and the market region of the subject. This results in a rounded capitalized value and assessed value of $3,284,000. On page 8 is the map of the subject area and the comparables. So you can see all the comparables except for one are right in the neighborhood. At the bottom is the subject parcel boundaries. On the following page is the aerial view of the property. On page 10 is the status of title for the property. You'll notice on page 12 there is a current on page 12 is the originating instrument where there was a transfer from WageX to the current owner of $1.6 million was the consideration. And that was back in 1999. If you turn to the following page, page 14, there was a permit for construction after in 1999 for a declared construction value of $1.1 million. You'll note that the total gross area, floor area that they are stating on the permit is 25,640 square feet. On the following page, page 15, is the income and expense submission that was submitted to the city. Again, on page 16, you'll see the rent there from the rent roll that they are charging $10.58 per square feet. The tenant is responsible for all the expenses. And then going through the rest of the brief is our expense study, cap rate study. I won't go through that. I think the board has heard this many times before. And then I also have some external industry reports to support the cap rates and the vacancy rates. So taking into account the actual rates stated by the owner, the state of the industrial market in Winnipeg, especially in the south end of the city over the last several years, where there are more users than available space. That's from the external sources evidence. We believe that the assessed value of $3,284,000 to be fair and equitable, and I respectfully ask that the board confirm this value. And
Thank you. Oh,
Questions?
sorry.
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Oh, sorry. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Neufeld, do you have any questions for the assessor?
Yes, I do. Now, you stated that you're not using the paid rent. Are there any reasons other than, or any reasons you could provide the board with for that reason?
Well, we assess properties based on market, not actuals.
You are aware that in the last cycle, the city of Winnipeg used this as a rent comparable. And I'm just wondering, are you now saying that their use of it as a comparable is not appropriate?
Well, why would we use a comparable for the subject? Why would we use the subject as a comp for itself?
No, sorry, you weren't listening to me. For other properties, this was used as a comparable in the last cycle, and the assessor swore under oath that it was a good market example. I'm asking you today if now you disagree that it's a good market example because you have a much lower rent applied to the building itself.
No, we are not using the subject as a comparable to itself.
That wasn't the question. I'm saying you're now disagreeing with the assessor.
I am not disagreeing, Mr. Neufeld. I am stating that for appraisal purposes, you do not use a subject for a comparable to itself. So I think I've answered your question.
All right, on what basis would that be? You said for
That's appraisal theory. I'm sure you are aware.
I've got a couple of books here. You don't mind telling me where that is written? Or are you just making this up?
Mr. Neufeld, please be okay, that was
I should choose my words better. Do you have a definitive source that says that you shouldn't be using the actual rent on the property? And if so, can you mind quoting that to me?
Mr. Neufeld, that's appraisal theory, so I'm not quoting that from anywhere. That's appraisal theory.
Okay, you're relying on that. So, right? Correct? On that statement?
I don't understand your question.
Well, I'm just saying you can't just blindly quote an appraisal theory without a proper annotation.
Okay, Mr. Neufeld, I think I've answered the question, and 814 is the market rent that we've used.
Okay, but the real question, let's just go back to this because I think it's an important issue. In 2016, the assessors in your department all swore that this was a good, valid market rent. Are you now disagreeing with
No, that is a good comparable for other properties.
For other, okay.
You don't use the subject for a comparable to itself.
Okay, well, I know that's incorrect, but I'll leave it at that. Now, you've put in the title and a permit. So the permit, I just want to confirm, that was June of 1999, correct?
Correct.
So at the time of sale in December of 1999, is it fair to say that the improvement was considered in the sale, or do you know?
No, it's not. There was a land transfer of 1.6 million, which is on the status on page 12.
Do you know?
And then there is a permit for construction of a two-story addition, construct two additions to the existing heavy equipment building. So that's what it's for. So there was an addition.
Was the addition you can confirm occurred before the sale?
No, the addition as you, on the status is a land transfer of 1.6 million. And then there is a construction value of 1.1 million.
Okay, but that permit was, my question, I started off, I said the permit pointing out to you was taken out in June of 1999. The transfer occurred in December of 1999. So are you saying that
That's when the status was registered. So there could have been a sale prior to that. We don't have the sale info.
what are you suggesting, that they made a sale a year prior to it? The new owner put on an addition? Do you know the answer to any of those
There
questions?
was a permit taken out.
Do you know the answer to any of those questions, or are you just speculating?
Well, if you have other proof, Mr. Newfound, then please submit it. But the land transfer is 1.6 and the addition was 1.1. And yeah,
This is
so the one.
This is
Okay,
your evidence.
Gentlemen, I think we,
Okay, fine. I'll move on. The vendor in that particular sale is the current tenant, correct?
Correct.
So, in other words, this appears to have been a sale leaseback?
Most likely. But the lease has been the same for over 20 years.
Well, you're showing a lease start. Was that a renewal, or was that did they vacate the premises?
There's also on page 17 from 2013. Page 16. It shows that lease started in 2015. And then there's another income statement on page 17, which for some reason shows a lease start date. It's 2010 is the lease start date on that one. So 10 years prior to that, there's also a lease on that. So I don't have the information before me for that.
So you're not aware whether these are renewals, step ups, do you have any?
Well, these are renewals. If you can see, if you look at the income expense statement, the tenant roll, there's a renewal in 2010, there's a renewal in 2015, and the rent has remained the same.
Okay. So can we assume they've been in occupancy since the sale in 1999 then?
Yes.
On page 15 and 16 and 17, you can confirm that these were the, and also page 18, confirm that these are the income and expense questionnaires submitted by the owner?
Yes.
And are these identical to the ones that the owner submitted, or has there been any alterations?
There's been no alteration. This is what they submitted.
Okay. On page 3, maybe we assume that that's a typo, the fourth rent.
Yes, sorry, that should be $8.07.
Okay. And in relation to the comparables, well, first of all, tell us where Ames is.
It's in the, actually, if you go to page 8, you'll see a map. It's in the south end of the city. And if you look at page 19, you will see that it's in the industrial market of the yellow there, number 2, which includes North and East Kildonan, Transcona, New St. Vital, and New St. Boniface.
Just confirm that this is actually located on the frontage road for the perimeter highway?
Yes.
So this land was had been zoned for years as MR. Do you know what MR is?
Not off the top of my head, I believe it, no, I don't.
Okay, so you're not aware that this land had for years been zoned as a rural industrial usage without services and generally for noxious users? The MR doesn't exist anymore, but when it was built, it did exist. So were you aware of the history of zoning in this area?
No, I'm doing the current assessment.
And the comparables you use are in St. Boniface Industrial and also the East Kildonan Industrial Area?
Correct. Market Region 2, Industrial Market Region 2.
Yeah, but I'm not really concerned about how the assessment department delineates, but are you not concerned at all that you're using a site that's on the perimeter highway that was pretty much designed for industrial use for people who are doing fertilizer sales, bulk gas sales, that sort of thing, equipment sales versus a standardized industrial park like St. Boniface?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Are you concerned that you're using a site that was planned and zoned for rural industrial use?
Well, it's not that currently, and I am using what is available for comparables.
Now, you're aware that St. Boniface Industrial has rail service?
Yes.
And does the furniture park site have rail access?
I'm unaware.
And you are aware that the subject does not have rail access?
Correct.
Does the assessment department put a modifier on the rents for having rail access?
None of my comparables have rail access except for, oh, sorry, I do not believe any of my comparables have rail access.
Well, a couple of my clients own these ones on Debates. I know they've got rail access, but my question was simply, does the assessment department have a modifier on their rent standards for a site that has rail access?
I'm not sure about how the model works.
Okay. And in regard to the capitalization rates, I see that on page 6 is your chart, and under the rows 5 to 8 are the industrial, and just confirm that the city doesn't delineate them the same way as private private realtors do. Like, in the Colliers, they'll have a single tenant and a multi-tenant, or a CBRE has a industrial A, industrial B, so does Cushman, but the city doesn't do that, do they?
No.
Okay, so it's one size for all. You also mentioned market reports, and what are those market reports?
Yeah, so if you look on appendix page 1, and on
Yeah, and so what are you referring to when you talk about the market reports?
well, I'm saying that our market our cap rates are indicative of what the industry is also stating, that the cap rates are out there in the market.
And did you read the disclaimers on these market reports?
Yes.
Bottom of page 3, this information contained within this report is gathered from multiple sources, considered to be reliable. The information may contain errors or omissions and is presented without any warranty or representations as to its accuracy. That's on the bottom of page 3. And page 4, the Colliers report, I know you're missing the page because we produce it. It says somewhat the same thing, that it's, there it is, bottom of page 11. Readers are encouraged to consult their professional advisors prior to acting on any of the material contained in this report. So in your mind, is that, are they giving you some sort of reliance?
Mr. Neufeld, we're not relying on these industry reports. We have our own market studies.
Okay.
I'm just saying that these reports back up our market study
Well, why are they there then?
to show you that they back up our market studies.
Did you interview anyone at these organizations to
No,
determine?
I'm not. Why would they put out reports if Mr. Neufeld? No, I did not. I did not interview anybody.
Okay, all right. And you are aware that on numerous occasions, we've presented to the board that these market reports are done for a marketing reason, not a valuation reason. I'm sure you've heard that, have you not?
No.
Okay. And on page 12 from the college report are the definitions of the type of properties that are included in our report. Are you suggesting that one of these definitions may fit the subject?
No, I'm just saying what I'm indicating, what Colliers is indicating as a Class A and a Class B. I know you've presented evidence before where you have said that there's certain definitions that purport those tenants or Class A and Class B to be, but I have just put it in there for my own reference and for the board's reference.
Are you relying on the information presented on page 21?
No, we are not relying on this whole material there. If you read the top of the page there, it says this is a sample of actual sales that took place. So it's just a sampling.
So you're not placing any weight on it?
We are. This is just a sample of what's been out there. There are more than these samples in our database. These have been just selected to show you that this is what's out there.
Well,
So we've taken a high range and we've taken a low range, and we just picked them out of our database to show you that there's a span here.
the square footage that's listed includes mezzanine space, is that correct?
In what?
Well, you've got plan area 21,705 and leasable 25,645. So I'm just wondering where the extra space comes
Sorry,
from.
I have not visited the premise, but yes, I believe that would include the mezz.
Okay, and how high is the mezzanine?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Did anyone inspect it on behalf of the assessment department?
No, not that I'm aware of.
And did you review the BOMA standards for industrial measurement?
Yeah, if you look at appendix page 15.
15?
At the bottom in the highlighted there.
Appendix. So this is the BOMA. Now, how does that compare to what the owner reported?
Well, I'm not sure where the owner is getting the information from. We went by the permit which they submitted.
Well, the owner obviously knows his building, has probably inspected it. They're saying 21,000.
The owner sent in a permit saying that there is a tenant area of 25,640 square feet.
On there.
Now, I haven't inspected it. One of my colleagues might have inspected it. And they usually inspect it when there's a permit that goes out and there's an occupancy permit.
Now, on the occupancy permit, are they bound to follow BOMA standards?
I am unaware.
Okay. On page 16 and 18, which are the two income and expense questionnaires, they say 21,720 square feet. Now, these people understand that the city will penalize them if they make a false report. So under threat of penalty, they are swearing to a much different number than you. Why?
I am taking, if you take their net
Excuse me.
rent.
Okay, I think this question has been asked and answered on both ends. Okay.
Okay, well,
I just want to state, since he asked, so if you were to take the leased area that the owner is claiming, then the net rent is $10.58 per square foot. If we take the rent that the leasable area that we are claiming from the permit, then the net rent is $8.96 per square foot. So it's still lower than the rent that we are using in our workup. Or sorry, it's still higher than the net rent that we are using in our workup of $8.14.
is that how assessments are driven, by saying I'm not using as high as you said and I'm manipulating?
No,
it?
Mr. Neufeld. Seriously.
It's a fair question. You're saying we did this. We
went by the permit. That's how we went with our net rent. Now I've answered that. So how many times are you going to ask me a different way of that?
Well, I think the point here is that it's question time, not answer a question with question time. So I think that this is a serious concern in response to what you said. And I see a discrepancy on measurement styles and statements made.
We're going by the permit.
Now, but again, as I did ask earlier, you are unaware of the difference between the requirements of property planning and development for determining size versus BOMA, are you?
BOMA, I'm sure they follow the BOMA standard, Mr. Neufeld.
You're sure? Have you ever dealt with property and planning?
I have dealt with them, but I haven't asked them that specific question.
Okay, they don't. But aside from that, those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Harden, do you have any questions?
Okay, I was going to ask about the differences in the leasable area, but that's come out. Now I'm going to ask about the cap rate of 6%. That's lower than your 20th quartile. Why is that? Why a superior property?
So it's the building that was built in 2000, which is fairly new. And according to, if you turn to page 12, this would be considered a Class A newer building with a high quality tenant. The mechanical and electrical systems, high ceiling, good loading capability. So it's a high quality building, and the net rent that it is generating is in the upper echelon of what's available in the market. So we believe that the 6% cap rate is fair. And actually, our City of Winnipeg 2018, if you look at the page 6, our lowest cap rate is 5.5%. So it's below the 20th percentile.
Okay, that's the extreme. Okay, I have no further questions.
Mr. Terrien?
Yes, I do have a question based on the lease again. I believe you mentioned that the lease of 2000, the renewal of 2015 was a net lease. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. Now then, so that gave an income of $229,798 if we use that. But then you went to the comparables and you used 814, but based on the permit square footage of 25,845. which gave you the 208,750. So how do we reconcile between, I know comparables are an issue, but you got a net lease, you tell us, but you're not using it. So I'm just, I want clarification here because I see a $21,000 difference more or less. And normally the lease is quite an important issue in determining revenue. And could you clarify this for me so I can
Yeah, so our assessments are based on the market. So we don't look at everybody's lease because there's a lot of owner operated buildings also. So we look at market rents. So that's where we get our market rent tables from. So in the permit, this building indicated that it was going to be 25,645 square feet. And when the occupancy permit was issued, field inspection would have been completed by one of our colleagues in the building here. So when we look at market rents, this is the rent that we are looking or is out there in the market right currently. $8.14 is what we chose for this building. And as I said, the owner is getting a higher net rent than what is out in the market currently. Now, the comparables that I chose are in the East St. Boniface, whereas the subject building is in the south part of the town. The only thing is I couldn't find tenanted buildings comparables of that size in the south end. So what I did was, according to our map on page there was increase. On page 19 is our industrial market regions. So the subject is in market region 2. So what I did was I looked for large leasable sizes in that whole region, and that's how I came up with my comparables.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have one question. Do you know, was the sale, I don't know if you'll know this, or I guess the tenant to the current owner, was this arm's length?
I'm not aware. They never did submit a sales mailer.
Okay.
At the time of sale.
Thank you very much. All right. Mr. Neufeld, you're up.
Thank you. Obviously, I managed to squeeze in a bit of testimony in the questioning, but just to recap, the site was a leaseback, and Wajax was operating the site and sold to the Carmoustie Holdings, who did the expansion and did a leaseback. As a result, we're not putting a great deal of weight on the achieved rent because generally on these things, they're more of a capital recovery tool rather than a market transaction. And they're neglecting the impact of the market. The lease was clearly for 21,720 square feet. Information that the owner provided, again, under threat of penalty of providing inaccurate information. And these are relatively sophisticated participants in the marketplace. Now, the difference between PP&D and the market is that PP&D is looking generally for a gross square footage on the permit, whether it's rentable or not. If there is a floor put in, you must put it on the market, but that does not mean it's rentable. The traditional measurement is BOMA, and the reason it's used is for consistency. So if this building were put on the marketplace, the agents in our office would be required to report it at 21,720, because that's the way it's compared to the market, especially industrial, because generally a mezzanine is a negative on value because it takes away from clear height, which is industrial what they want. They want clear height. They make money with good ceiling height. They don't make money on mezzanines. A mezzanine is not a profitable revenue producer. But aside from that, BOMA standards as well as market standards would dictate that it doesn't get included. As a matter of fact, Securities Commission would call this a violation of standards if a broker came along and said, I got 25,645 square feet for lease or for sale. We are just not allowed to say that. The important point for the board, though, is when you're comparing the subject to other properties, what was the standard that was used on other properties? And the assessor did not bring forward any information on his measurement styles for the other properties. There has to be some consistency. So that's why we're using the 21,720. As for the rent, again, we knew that it couldn't be relied on, and we did select a rate of $7 just from the market information. I mean, if the assessor came forward and said, well, maybe it should be $8. I don't think that's the issue at stake today. The issue at stake today is the rentable area. We have gone ahead and we are not using any of the assessment standards anymore, because when the non-recoverable issue popped up, we realized they were on a different path. And they can do that, but I can't do that. I'm an appraiser. So we used a vacancy of 2.8%, which is the industrial and St. Boniface rate from the Johnson report. We have much more confidence in the Johnson report, mainly because it's transparent. So on page 4 is the summary of it. But the backup to the Johnson report on industrial is about 30 pages of data. So you can actually look at it and question and say, should that be included? Should it not be included? Did you miss something? And that's in litigation, that's more important than saying, I got a model. This is what my model says. Can you explain the model? No. That's where we're going with this. Similarly, the costs, the non-recoverables, and the structural reserve. We're not accepting just a 2%. Appraisal theory, which I do know quite well, and I have the textbook in my office here somewhere, says you have to allow for additional costs. It can be a structural reserve, it could be other. You have to allow for non-recoverables, and because all properties have them. And again, the most important point on all of this is the way that you create your, whether it be a model or a cap rate, has to be consistent with the way of valuation. The entire market in the world, except for Winnipeg, uses non-recoverables for calculating their cap rates. And that's the degree of accuracy that you're required to have, not to have your own system. Only the city of Winnipeg is out of step with the world markets. Now, we're using a non-recoverable of 5%, which is a fairly standard amount, and it covers all the costs that you cannot get out of your tenant. And they range. They include work that has to be done under the lease that it can't be recovered, so generally HVAC and that sort of thing, maybe some structural. It includes allowance for bad debt, commissions, insurance, accounting, legal items that your operating recoveries are just based pretty much taxes and utilities in lease. So we have done an exhaustive study. Colliers manages well over 100 properties, and I'm just looking to see if we submitted a summary of our report. Yes, we did, and on page 40, 41, and 42 was the result of our analysis. So this was done about 2 years ago, and I think a lot of times the failure here, and I've been just thinking about this, has to do with the city's questionnaire. Because in this particular questionnaire, they're listing 3 expense items. So I have my doubts on that's all there is. Now, generally, in a statement, in a financial statement, there are 2 ways of dealing with non-recoverables. One is to expense it, and the second way is to capitalize it and depreciate it. Both methods have to be investigated. I know the mantra in the assessment department, we don't look at depreciation. Yes, you must, because that's where the capital expenses are placed. They're placed there because it's an accounting practice, but it doesn't mean they don't exist. So the assessment department is not asking for those schedules, and so they're missing them. That's where the major error that they have is coming in. So we're using that estimate. The structural reserve is pretty much based on roof replacement. How much is it going to cost to replace the roof on a 20-year life? We've calculated these things out for years. It's generally about 25 cents a foot that you have to put aside to replace it after 20 years. That gets you $50 a square foot to spend on your roof. 50? 25? No, less than that, sorry. The shortfall, which again we differ, has to be based on what the property experiences. There's no such thing as an industry standard. Every building is different. That's why the assessment department puts out these questionnaires. So we know that the taxes are $3.63 a square foot. That's definitely a shortfall. We know that utilities are in and around $2 a square foot. We just penciled in the city's number for business at $2.45, which is a bit on the low side, but it is their number, and $1 a square foot for repair and maintenance. Now the questionnaires do not reflect these costs, and so I'm a little bit doubtful that these are actually the ones, but regardless, that's what the industry pays, and that works out to $708 a square foot, and so our NOI is $130,000. And again, all of these issues are we feel just in their multitude and how many there are, that the industrial parameters have really strayed from the market. Everything is different, and that's not because we like to disagree. That we're pointing this out or we're looking for something. They've just really, the model doesn't represent market anymore. The capitalization rate, we do have a number of examples at the back, and generally a capitalization rate in industrial, any printed report you see, whether it's Cushman, Colliers, CBRE, when they report cap rates on industrial, it's not for working buildings like this one. They don't track them. They're for office flux warehouse. In Winnipeg, think of the brewery conversion on St. James, or the buildings along Keniston. That's called flex warehouse. That's what investors want. They don't want working buildings because they have a short life. This is a working building. There are very few leases and sales of caps for working buildings. We have a number on page 30, the Slate portfolio, which was, we worked it out to 8.6%. Then on page 31, a building on Seal, which involved some ownership and business change, but I did the work on this, so I'm comfortable with 8.29. Paquin, 8.47. Poplar's inferior. Aikens is inferior. Chevrolet I reported, but it's a portfolio sale, so we weren't going to use that. Winfield, 35 Winfield, 9.48. Wheatfield, which is not reliable because it was a lease back, what was 7.45. And Richard, which involved some family connections at 8.75, although I am aware that they did a fair amount of due diligence to have it approved as a market sale by hiring several appraisers. And I did review the numbers with ownership. In addition to that, I believe yesterday we emailed some rebuttal information, and it had to do with the city's cap rate that they presented on the assessor's, sorry, I've forgotten the page number, and I've also lost my report.
Sorry, Mr. Neufeld, I'll just let you know I haven't shared that rebuttal at this time, so I can go ahead and do that right now.
Oh, okay.
Although I do believe the assessor did receive it already.
Yes, I did.
Perfect.
Okay, sorry, I found it. So in this, page 1 is, we were talking about standard.
Mr. Neufeld, sorry, we don't have it yet.
Okay. And by the way, we're going to take a bit of time on this one. We're not going to go through this all in the next ones, just so that, it won't go all day.
Okay, so for our panel members in the room, if you go to the file folder, you should now see those rebuttal files. And anticipating the assessor will be introducing his, I've also put that in there. Madam Chair, I sent you the email.
Okay, I have, okay, just got it. So perhaps, do we want to do questions on this evidence first and then move on to rebuttal from both parties?
That makes sense. If everybody
Like, does anybody hear me?
I heard you.
Okay, thank you. So Mr. Neufeld, did you have anything else from your general package of evidence, or can we do? Okay, so Mr. Assessor, this is just for the sake of management of material. Mr. Assessor, do you have questions?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Neufeld, you were saying that BOMA standards don't allow a mezzanine to be included in leasable area?
No, I'm saying that BOMA standards have issues with the mezzanine, and generally the bottom line on it will be the market, general market standard on how mezzanines are treated. That's the ultimate decider. I do have a copy of the industrial standard here.
Actually, if you go to my appendix, page 15, at the bottom there in the highlight, it says a mezzanine is considered rentable area if the mezzanine is either permanent or unclassified. Only temporary or non-permanent mezzanines are excluded from rentable. This is a significant change from the previous industrial standard in which mezzanines would have been designated as finished in order to be rentable.
Sorry, that is your information.
That is the BOMA industrial standards.
No, it isn't. See, because the industrial standard is 56.
The whole page 15 is the industrial standards from BOMA.
No, they're not. The actual industrial standard is a 56-page document.
Okay, this is an overview of the BOMA industrial standards. This is from BOMA, and you can find this on their website, actually.
They don't publish that on their website because you have to be a member to get these and pay for the standard.
So are you indicating that I just made this up?
I don't know what your source is. I'm looking at the actual document now. It's 58 pages. And essentially what it does say is that the defining reason for area is the market standard.
Do you have that in your evidence and the date of the publication?
For me, I wasn't out to support this. I was telling you that you did it wrong.
Okay, moving forward, you have a net rent of $7. Can you tell me where you got that from?
Sorry, I'm going to finish answering your last question. Mezzanine, BOMA, this is reading from their standards. Mezzanines are not measured as part of exterior gross area or drip line area of a floor or a building. That's what they say in the actual standards.
That's external, is that correct?
External means that it's the gross, not included in the gross floor area.
The drip line measures external walls, is that correct?
No, drip line is just a different.
No, actually, it's written in my page 15 there, appendix 15. It tells you the BOMA industrial method A and B, and one is the drip line and one is not the drip line.
Right, and
what they're talking about measuring the exterior.
Right, and so what I'm saying here is that BOMA says is that mezzanines are not included in that area. So that, but the defining issue is it will still be a local industry standard. So if an agent working puts a building for sale and he says, well, BOMA says maybe I can put it in, his broker won't let him do it, not in Manitoba. Now, there are different locations where it is acceptable. Generally, these are on multi-level places. I'm thinking that I think Vancouver uses that as a measurement because they have a lot of overdeveloped properties with multiple levels. Winnipeg does not. Manitoba does not. You cannot use it. So the measurement is out.
Okay, so do you have the BOMA standards in your evidence?
No, I have the owner's I have a copy of the lease here, which we didn't put in, and which lays out the areas, which you agreed is correct. That the owner is saying, the owner is stating this area. So the parties agreed to it as well, which is supersedes BOMA's also.
Okay, I'll move on then.
No, just one last thing on BOMA. Most BOMA measurement standards usually get involved in office rather than the other uses because it generally just doesn't come up. Most BOMA's membership is made up of office people, not industrial people.
But they have industrial standards?
Yes, they do.
Okay, and your net rent of $7, where did you get that from?
That was our estimate from the market data we saw, and we had a number of properties on page 3. And
so you have a range of properties starting from 7,500 square feet to 355,000 square feet. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So the properties in question would probably range between 15,000 and 33,000.
I think probably a bit tighter. I would probably think 18,000 or so up to maybe 30,000. And if you look at that range, the low.
Okay. So the properties you have listed here, they're all from Inkster Boulevard. They're from St. James. None of them are from St. Boniface, are they?
First of all, there are absolutely none that we could find from the actual area where the property is located. It is in its own area, its own distinct area.
But you couldn't find in the same market region either, St. Boniface?
Well, I have some older rents from Melnick Road, which is right beside it, that are somewhat dated.
And would they be older than the 2011 ones that you have in here?
Yes, and some work I had done in there years prior, And the St. Boniface rents, we have several St. Boniface rents in this list. St. Boniface is a different market area. There's really two distinct areas. There's the areas in and around Marion, which are mostly owner occupied, and M3. So more rough usage, like recycling facilities, oil storage. And then the second batch are the St. Boniface Industrial Park, which was brought to market by the city of Winnipeg, and it was designed rail in the back, roads on the front, for logistics, being located next to the intermodal station, rail station. That was its intent. Then when you consider Ames is closer in relationship to the Marion rents than to the St. Boniface Industrial, because the type of usership, as I mentioned earlier, it was planned on an MR zoning, which no longer exists. I think after 2006, they took that away. But it is closer to M3 than any other usage. So generally, they don't rent.
So are any of these properties M3 or M2, or like the subject is the M1 zoning? Which ones here are M2 zoning, and which ones are not? Like
the subject is now M2, but its grandfathered is MR.
Okay, so what you're saying is you don't have any rents, current rents from the St. B or the other areas that you just mentioned?
No, as I mentioned, I have an older one on Milnet, which is 2 doors down from the subject, for a propane storage facility.
In regards to your shortfall rates, you're saying that on your page 38, you have a Collier's expense management study.
Yes.
Who published that? Who are the authors?
That was my department in here that put it together.
Okay. Okay, so you have a number of income statements examined here. So which ones are industrial? Which ones are multi-family, retail?
Well, none are family, because we don't do multifamily work.
Retail, office.
Yeah,
have you separated these?
Mix of retail, office, and industrial.
So it's a mix. So would you say that office and retail have the same shortfall as industrial buildings?
Generally, they all have a fair degree of similarity, and the defining elements would be issues like age, quality, and interest to an investor.
And finishing?
Well, like a new investment, maybe put out by a REIT or a more sophisticated investor, are much more diligent at offloading expenses to their tenants. Smaller operations, local operations don't tend to. So that's the dividing line. So you can see that there's a range of the low end would be a more experienced REIT, and the high end would be a local investment ownership.
Okay. So you came up with a shortfall of $7.08 plus the structural reserve of 25 cents. So does that equal out to any of your on page 41 your median or mean, low, high shortfall rates?
What page did you say?
Page 41, you have a count of 86 statements that you.
Oh, these are not shortfalls. These are nothing but.
Sorry.
Those are non-recoverables on page 41, not shortfalls.
Sorry. So your non-recoverables are at 5%. And your mean on page 41 is 12.8%. So was there a reason why you didn't use the 12.8 and use 5%?
Yeah, certainly. When we looked in detail at some of the ones reporting higher non-recoverables, it was usually based on a bad year where they had higher tenant turnover. And ones like that shouldn't go to develop your mean. What they should be done is stabilized over a 10-year period. Now, the window we had was only 3 years. We were probably, if I was going to redo the survey, I would probably start on a 10-year window and go building by building. And because the rates would be, there's some on page, trying to remember which one. I did not identify these on purpose, but I think there's one that was at 30% at 1 year, and then the next year I looked at it, it was down to following year was 20%, and then the following year after that was I think 2%, and what that accounted for was a vacancy, the cost to renovate the property for a new tenant, and all the costs associated with the turnover. So what I rather used was looking at the trend line to see where did it settle in rather than the mean. And the trend line seemed to settle in at about 6 to 7%. And the goal in producing this was not to come up with change the number. It was simply to say we have to allow for non-recoverables, and we know that our properties have a higher non-recoverable than even the 5%. But some of this, to be fair, could have been 2% plus the 5% for 7%, and that's why that trend line, which stabilized at somewhere around, I think, 6.7%. My printing got cut off, was actually a fair representation.
Okay, and I see in some of them you've included asset management, and can you just explain what the asset management is?
Sure. There are a more sophisticated operation will have 2 levels of management, and that'll be the property manager's role, which Colliers will fill. Now that property management fee is generally recovered from the tenants, and then the company that owns it runs their own asset management, which are all non-recoverable expenses. However, when they declare their returns to their investors, there is a charge for it in the statements, and it varies from property to property depending on the size and the type of operation. So it is a definite non-recoverable, and you will not see that in an operating statement because the city doesn't have a slot for it.
Okay, so when you're saying asset management, it's usually REITs that have these asset management fees when they manage a number of properties together. Is that correct?
Well, it'll be a multiple property owner of some sort, generally, who runs with a staff and full-time people. With a small investor who might only have 1 or 2 properties, we're not going to bother with his asset management because it's rather small and insignificant. The larger they are, the more involved they are in the operation.
So asset management comes into play when there's more than 1 property?
Generally, yes.
Okay, and I noticed you haven't put any addresses on these properties that you've examined. Is there a way to verify them?
Well, we produce this under oath, and I have an accreditation that I have to have the backup for it. So we do have all the backup as far as fulfilling our requirements for putting forward solid information. We chose not to provide the addresses simply because we did not want to see them as a target. It is no secret that the assessment department has a has a habit of looking at properties and requesting penalties. And one of the penalties would be if you provide information that you didn't provide to the assessor. That should not apply in this case because it's only on your own appeal. However, we're not looking for a stupid fight about penalties for reasons that should never exist. When this gets to municipal board, we are going to supply it. But then, of course, we'll be represented by council who can put them in the right framework as to why we presented them the way we did. In other jurisdictions, when we've come up with information that shows the assessor is wrong, we've been they've threatened to apply penalties on people. They said, "Well, they
Just asking. I didn't need your opinion on how the city operates. I just want to know if the why or if this is verifiable. But I understand that you want to keep it confidential. So moving
for that fight right now."
So looking at your cap rate now, so you're saying your cap rates are derived from page 30 and 31, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So you're using a slate portfolio, which is a portfolio sold by a REIT to another REIT, is that correct? That was a slate portfolio?
No, it wasn't sold to a REIT. They're a private investment group who bought it.
Okay, but it was sold to another entity which manages a whole bunch of properties.
That's correct.
And then so you worked out all these cap rates on that portfolio, is that correct?
Well, I had their data going back several years, and when I worked them out, and then I consulted with the purchaser, and then I consulted with the appraiser who did the work on the transfer and on the valuation, and so I had some outside confirmation on the reliance of them, and also, I also consulted with the property manager who now works at Colliers for the former owner. So I did get all three sides of the transaction.
So you consulted with Slate Management then?
I consulted with Slate's former property manager as to a variety of issues, but essentially it was to look at the accuracy of what I had done. And his name is Rudy Braun, and he was quite helpful.
And then at the bottom of page 31, you have 1375 and 1385 Richard. Is that a multi-roll sale?
It's well, yes and no. It's now a single roll sale as of a few months ago. The city amalgamated it.
But at the time of sale, it was multi-roll?
Well, it was always one economic unit. They submitted their questionnaires as one. It just has two titles on it. So, and it's relatively small, and the usage of it is consistent from one title to the other. And they've had consistent ownership.
I'm not sure why there's office and retail cap rates in here in your brief.
I'm just lazy. I don't like new reports.
Okay. And so just to clarify, you wrote you created this brief?
I think it was an office product that created it. We have a lot of people working on this, so it does not qualify as a work product covered by QSPAP. It's not an appraisal work. It's an office product.
So is that your opinion of value then, or no?
No. But what this is not an opinion of value. This is the whole report,
okay.
or just the cap rates.
Okay. So So I also have rebuttal evidence, but I guess. we'll
Let's
wait
finish
for
the questioning. Let's see if any of the panel members have questioning first, then we can move on to rebuttal. Mr. Harden?
Okay, Mr. Newfield, does the tenant use the mezzanine?
I have no idea. I did not have the opportunity to inspect. But
Okay, so
what else is in there?
you don't know the nature of the mezzanine then?
No, I don't.
Is it developed, used for storage, used for office?
No, we didn't get a chance to inspect this particular property.
Okay, all right, I have no other questions.
Thank you. Mr. Terrian?
Yes, I was on the same line as my colleague here. Do you know what the condition of the building is, Mr. Neufeld?
I've only seen it in drive-by. It appears to be good.
So you did not inspect the building, is that correct?
No, I didn't, nor did anyone. I think one of the brokers in our office did, but I didn't get any material from him, so no.
Okay. So pursuing the question of my colleague, so I had the same question because you did raise the issue of mezzanine. And, but is there any evidence in your docket that indicates what the size of that mezzanine is?
No, we had no information on that. What we had was the lease, and we were going on the lease.
But does the lease cover a portion of what's in the mezzanine? And I'm trying to get a better handle on the issue of, because you used only 21,000 square feet, excluding completely your evidence that this was the mezzanine area. So I'm trying to get a better handle on what that mezzanine area is. And if there's anything in the lease or any information you have, that would be helpful.
Well, I think in all the industrial work we've done, we rarely ever put a mezzanine in because it takes away. Now, if you've had one with separate access, which I know this does not have, and is separately rentable, I think you can consider it. But it's an accessory use. And as with all industrial, the presence of a mezzanine reduces the value of the space below because we want to put tractors in here, not people. And that's the general philosophy. All I've got is the lease, the owner's statements to the city made under threat of penalty. The concept of the space is more of a consistency. I can tell you that all the leases we used, many of them had mezzanines. We did not use mezzanine space in our leases because it's not the way industrial is done in Winnipeg.
So it's based on general information, based on your evidence, your experience in industrial buildings.
Yeah, that you could say that my experience, but the entire market's experience. This is the way it's done in Winnipeg. This is our market standard. I mean, it's like a split level house. There's rules as to which levels get counted and which don't get counted.
But do we know there is a mezzanine there, or are we assuming there is a mezzanine?
Well, the only information we've seen on this is what the assessor has said. So I'm not going to doubt what he said, but I'm just looking at. I suspect what happened there is that if he's saying it's all done on permit, is that the builder just reported the gross area, and we don't know what's up there. I don't think the use really matters. If this goes further, we'll have an inspection. We'll look at that. It'll be part of the process, but the major part of the process is the legal side of it. You can't consider it rentable. The only-
I believe though that the assessor said he didn't know.
Yeah,
About the mezzanine. I believe that's what was said.
yeah.
Okay, that's all, Madam Chair.
I just have a question. Do you by any chance have an interior floor plan of this building? Because I have seen, there generally, if there is a mezzanine, it's perhaps above the office or above where the bathrooms are, something like that, not generally in the middle of the warehouse.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. I mean, I'm just double checking my file here to see if we got one sent to us. When I look at the outside pictures, I see that there's a row of windows on the building.
On the second, where a second floor would be?
Where potentially one is, yes.
Oh.
And that's on the low ceiling portion of it. And so that, and I'm just guessing here that the elevation on that is probably below the standards for occupancy, because I'm just, let's see what. Okay, the assessor is providing wall height of 22 feet, and I don't know what measurement is. That's the back one or the front one. Okay, the car is about 5 feet, so that looks to be, no, around 5. About a 18-foot building with trusses and deck. That's going to probably put you 8 foot on the first floor and 7 on the second. That's just my speculation.
Okay, but you understand what I was asking, because sometimes there's space that you wouldn't necessarily be able to use as warehouse space if it's where the washrooms are, or
right, if it's sexual usage, or if it was and this is a new property for us, so we're not as familiar with it as the rest of our properties.
Okay, so
It appears to be there's a mezzanine of 3,940 square feet. And it's office. There's a boardroom. Yeah, offices and a boardroom.
Where is this coming from?
I just pulled up the field form, so I'm sorry I didn't include it in my evidence.
thank you very much. Okay, that was my question. I guess does anybody need a break right now, or can we go through the rebuttal evidence and then take a break?
Would really like a break.
Let's do the rebuttal, then we'll take a break. That's my opinion.
I have a bit more pressing matters, if that's okay.
Okay.
So just
Sorry?
a 5-minute recess then?
Sure, let's just take a 5-minute recess right now then.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right, we are now back live. Let's start with the rebuttal evidence, please. Mr. Assessor.
He's just got to unmute himself here. Sorry, Mr. Assessor,
we can't hear you.
There we go.
Sorry about that. So my rebuttal evidence is for the next 4 files, so this file and the next 3. Maybe if we can just start on page 3. I have a new press release from a Slate Office REIT indicating the properties that they sold in 2015, or sorry, the press release is from 2015, and they're indicating the properties that they sold in Winnipeg, totaling 56.2 million, which Mr. Neufeld has on his cap rate study on his page 30 and 31. So if you note on the press release, there is 13 12 properties that sold with a total square footage of 516,495. And then I also have on page 5, as a private investor, I posed the question to the Slate Office REIT's or Slate Management's investor relations. I sent them this email, which is on page 5. And I listed the properties that they sold, and I just was confirming that those are the properties that they sold. Now, my email was sent in 2019, October 16. And then I also listed that there's some other properties that certain professionals in Winnipeg are claiming also sold with this portfolio. So on page 6 is their response stating that they only sold the 12 properties. They didn't have those other properties to sell. And the $47 million that the property, or the price that was paid for the 12 properties, had the leasable area of 516,495 square feet. So there is the reply from the Vice President of Investor Relations at Slate Asset Management. And then on page 7, this is in regards to the cap rate evidence that Mr. Neufeld has on page 31, 1535 seal. So on my page 7 in the rebuttal, there's the property. And then on page 9, I work out the cap rate as at December 2013. Now, if you notice, there's the rent there that they were paying. The total rent that they reported was $250,400. And then working out the cap rate, at the bottom, the cap rate turns out to be 8.09% and not the 8.29% that Mr. Neufeld calculated here. And then on page 10, 100 Paquin Road, on page 11, is the sales questionnaire that the new owner mailed in. Now, I've highlighted in yellow. I'm not sure if you can see it there, but on 3, it's indicated it was due. The sale was due because there was a financial issue with the current owner. So this was a distressed sale. So this distressed sale should not be included in a cap rate report. So that's for 100 Paquin. And then for 367 Poplar on page 13, you'll note that they are indicating question number 15, that the condition of the building was poor. So obviously you're going to have a higher cap rate for a poor building. It's probably not investment grade. There's the pictures on it on page 12, overhead and from street view. And moving on to page 14, 51 Aikens. So there was no income and expense mailer submitted from 2008 to 2016. It was owner occupied per the 2007 submission. And then in 2014, there was a sale, but there was no income and expense submission to be able to verify what the, if there was any rent that they were collecting or income. And then there was another sale on September 2017. So I'm not sure how this 11% cap rate has been calculated. And I'm not sure why the September 11, 2017 sale was not included as a cap rate. So just some questions about that cap rate. Not sure why an older one sale would be used when there was a newer sale prior to the reference date. And then 1436 Chevier on page 15, there's the income mailer, the sales mailer that was submitted. by the new owner. You'll notice that in question number 3, it was an arm's length sale. There was no other real estate included in the sale. There was an appraisal done as per question 5, and that appraisal came in at 4.1 million. There was no leaseback agreement between vendor and purchaser. Question 15, the property was in average condition. And then on page 16, question 32, you'll notice they did their own cap rate calculation, and they came up with 7.5. So I'm not sure where Mr. Neufeld's 7.10 came from, but it, apparently it's not reliable, as per Mr. Neufeld's statement there on that cap rate. And then Adelaide, 49 Adelaide. This is a building in the Exchange District. It was built in the early 1900s. There's the pictures on it on 1819. And then on page 20, you'll see the registered owner as 5209226 Manitoba Limited. And at the bottom is the business assessment notice. So the assessment notice is going out to Adelaide Mini Storage. And the assessable party is, again, 5209229 Manitoba Limited. So this was an owner-occupied building. So I'm not sure how you can calculate a cap rate on an owner-occupied building. And then on page 21, there was some reviews for the Adelaide Mini Storage. And I'll just read the one at the bottom there. So it's by Peter Parker. Obviously, that's anonymous. So here it says, management has changed, and I can't say that I enjoyed my experience. To start, the lobby was dirty. Then up on the second floor, it was apparently in a shambles. So it wasn't dusted, it wasn't swept, it was dirty. Above that, there's another letter that went to the city. It was submitted to 311. And the caller here is stating that there's mouse droppings, and it's just the building is not in good shape. So I don't know how you could use that cap rate evidence, or how you calculated the cap rate. Now I'm not sure how you could use that as investment quality building for cap rate purposes. And then on page 35, so the building was sold. I have the tenant roll there. So in 2014, before the sale, you can see the monthly rent there was $9,850 per month. And then at the bottom, there's a submission by the new owner. Again, it's the same rent that they're charging the tenant there. And then in 2015, the rent went up. We're talking about the sale that was in 2014. So if you work out the cap rate on page 24, I worked out the cap rate. So it turns out the cap rate is 5.77%, not the 9.48% that Mr. Neufeld is claiming. So that's my rebuttal, and I'll be open to questions now.
Thank you very much. Mr. Neufeld, do you have questions for the assessor? Mr. Neufeld, you're muted. Okay.
Sorry, yeah. I just received this document. So wait, wrong computer here. Okay. I'll just go in order here. Page 3, 4, page 5. So I just want to confirm that you personally sent this message to Slate Office REIT?
Correct.
And you called yourself a potential retail investor. Did you end up investing?
I'm an investor. I'm not going to tell you what investments I have, but I was looking at REITs at the time.
And was your purpose for sending this to invest, or was it to investigate for?
It was to invest.
You sent this to them. Now, if you send it to them to invest,
I sent it to the audit committee as their website indicated. I sent it to investor relations, and I didn't hear anything. I sent a letter to audit committee, and then their VP of investor relations got back to me. And yes, I do invest in REITs, so I was looking at options of investing.
Did this particular contact have the approval of your supervisor?
No, my supervisor didn't know anything about it.
Okay. Do you know what IFRS is?
Elaborate, please.
Independent Financial Review? Do you know what the term means?
No.
GAAP, generally accepted?
Yes, I know GAAP.
GAAP, okay. As you know, GAAP was replaced by IFRS. Be aware of that?
No, I'm not sure.
Do you understand the difference between how they value rental properties?
No.
You're not aware that under the new concept of IFRS, you're not allowed to put land rents in your statements? Are you aware of that?
I just told you I'm not aware of that standard.
Well, this is a more specific question. You're not aware that you can't do it. And do you know how many land rent properties Slate had?
No, I was asking about this specific press release that they put out.
So you're not aware that under rules and, but first of all, Slate is publicly traded, correct?
Correct.
So you're not aware that under the standards of the Independent Financial Review, that standard, that if that there are rules that apply on reporting of land rents, that you're not allowed to call them properties?
Mr. Neufeld, I'm not aware of that standard.
So if you're not aware of these,
Mr. Neufeld, I think the assessor has answered.
Okay,
He's
no,
unaware. I think we've
He's
established
unaware.
he's unaware.
right? So if you're unaware of how the REIT system works, of what value is this particular statement here?
Well, I'm looking to invest in a company, and if the company is putting out press releases that are not truthful, I want to investigate. So their response was that they did not own the 3 additional properties referred to in my email below there.
That's correct. They did not own them because they rented them. They owned a leasehold estate. Did you ask that question?
Mr. Neufeld, my evidence is in my rebuttal there.
But you never asked the question about leasehold estates, did you?
No.
Okay. Did you review their submissions, their financial statements?
Yes, I did.
Now
I don't know them off the top of my head, though.
I have some copies here. I'm not going to beat this to death, but it's been provided to the assessor in the past that they've taken 3 properties and do not report them. You never read that when you read the financial statements?
Mr. Neufeld, I just told you what I have in my evidence is what I have, and I have not read these financial statements.
Well, do you think it's fair that you present incomplete evidence to this board? Don't you?
Well, I don't think it's fair that you're putting in these properties that weren't sold with the that are not verifiable.
Listen, I'm not making up stuff to ask people questions. Now on seal, you've presented a rent rule as of December 2013, correct?
Correct.
And when was the sale?
November 2013.
So at the end of this cycle.
Correct.
So you're not aware of that the sale was based on a higher rent that was negotiated?
Well, the tenant roll states that the
That's not what
lease
I'm asking.
started on May 15, 2004 and goes to May 31st, 2016.
But did you never investigate with either the tenant or the landlord that there was a rent change coming up?
I investigated what they sent me, or sent the department.
Right. And so dated information. So you weren't there at the actual time of sale then, were you?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. On 100 Paquin, you said that was a distress sale. Sorry, could you just point out where it says that?
Well, question number 3 says, let me just pull up a better copy of this and I'll read it to you exactly. Okay, so question number 3, they answered. Property was a leaseback.
Sorry, you gotta interrupt you for a second. You said they answered. Who answered this?
That is the new purchaser.
What, do you have a
This
name?
was submitted by the new purchaser.
Wait a minute. Do you have a name of who wrote that? Do you know?
I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, that's fine. Go
They
ahead.
signed it.
Go ahead.
So the property was a leaseback, US-based vendor, had capital requirements, financial pressure in their industry sector.
So that's your definition of distress.
Financial pressure, yes.
I got financial pressure. I'm not in distress. Everyone's got financial. If I told you that I wrote that, would that change your view of it?
No,
Why not?
because that's what was submitted.
What about line 6? Sale price was established at the same time based upon investment criteria.
Okay, so it's a leaseback.
Yes.
So the two companies are related, probably?
No, they're not. But did you do any further investigation?
No, I just, this is what they sent us and that's what I based it on.
Well, you seem to have done a fair amount of other investigation. You are not aware then that on probably 50 different occasions I've sworn under oath that this is the purest cap rate sale you're ever going to see, because they didn't care about the sale price, they didn't care about the rent. There was just a return level that it was based on.
So the sale is from 2010, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so there was no sale just prior to the reference date? There, you couldn't find any other sales
There was the
to do
second
cap
sale.
rate?
There was a second sale later on in, if you'll note in my workup. What's that?
Okay, well, we can get to that when you present your
Yeah, okay.
rebuttal
There's
then. So let's
second
just,
sale in 2014. Okay. You brought up 367 Poplar, and you did hear me say that I'm not relying on that?
No, I didn't hear you say that.
Okay. And the same goes for 51 Akins? Did you hear that?
No, I didn't.
And if on page 14, you say there's no income and expense submission, what does that have to do with the validity of the cap rate?
Well, if there's no income, how can you set a cap rate?
No.
Cap rates are based on income and or an NOI.
There's no income provided to you. How do you know there's no income?
Well, I don't see it in your evidence either, so.
Did you check MLS?
I did check MLS, Keystone Properties,
Did you say the income?
but it was not on there.
You see the income was stated in MLS in the listing?
I can't remember, but off the top of my head.
On page 15, line 5.
So maybe if I can just clarify here. So which sale are you referring to? 2014 sale? On 51 Akins.
My question,
I'm trying to, there's 2 sales on it. So it was owner occupied, but until the first sale in 2014, which you have indicated here as the sale, but it was owner occupied.
Who was the owner?
I don't know, but it was owner occupied as per their income statement.
Well, you said you didn't have an income statement.
I don't have it in front of me.
Okay. But my question was, you seem to think that a sale doesn't have rent if they don't give it to you.
No, if it's owner occupied, you can't use it. How do you have NOI if it's owner occupied?
Wait, I believe, isn't this moot anyway because you're not relying on it?
That's correct. I'm sorry for going down that path. I can tell you that there's a very personal involvement on that. It was my wife's uncle who owned it, and he passed away, and so it was a family. He passed away in 2008. So at that point onwards, it was a rented property. His name was Frank Clancy. Moving along to page 15, question 5 was, you asked for an appraisal. Now, does the assessment department use appraisals to set their assessments?
No, we ask.
Okay, so at what point is another person's opinion of value?
Well, we want to know if we are also in the same ballpark as different assessors or appraisers in the city. So we need to ask, was the purchase price based on an appraisal?
And okay, Adelaide, you heard me say I wasn't relying on that?
No, I did not hear that.
Okay.
I don't know why you're putting these in if you're not relying on those.
Well, maybe you should have asked that question first.
I didn't hear your statements, Mr. Newfield.
Well, okay, so don't criticize me when you're not paying attention.
Oh, okay.
I'm not criticizing you. Mr.
Okay.
Newfield.
Come on, guys.
Okay, now, the page 22, the 9850, was that what you used below to calculate a cap rate on page 24?
Yes.
Okay, and the sale was August of 2014?
Correct.
And at that point, the lease had expired, had it not?
If you look on page 22, the top part.
Yeah.
That was right before the sale.
Right.
So that was submitted January 31st, 2014.
Okay. But,
And if you see the rent there, the rent is indicated as $9,850.
but
And I included the submission by the new owner to show that the rent has not changed
well,
until
it actually did change. But my question here is, isn't a cap rate supposed to be based on the potential of the site? The site had an older rent beforehand, and
beforehand, you can usually tell what the rent is going to be at minimum.
Is that the way the appraisal standards are written? That
I can't tell you.
what it is?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so but you're using an old rent to say that this is what the cap rate was.
Well, if you look at the two rents, one is from prior and one is from after, and they're both at $9,850.
Okay, and The rest of the statement is cut off at the bottom on page.
It's just excess lines. There was nothing written there, so I just cut them off there. There was nothing written there.
Okay, so you this is your limit of your information on the site. You weren't aware of the land rent, were you?
It was not in the income expense mailer, so I went by the income expense mailer.
Okay. And you didn't verify any of these with the participants in the sale?
What they submitted, the city put them under obligation to submit some information, and what they submitted is what we rely on.
In this case, but not for the subject, correct?
Sorry?
Well,
The cap rate? Are you talking about cap rates?
No, sorry, you just said that you're relying on the information provided in this case, because it's what the owner provided. But in the case of the subject, they gave you a square footage, but you're not relying on that.
They provided square footage to PP&D.
They answered,
and I could send you the field form where it says there's offices and boardrooms and a washroom in the mezzanine.
You just answered differently for.
Well, we were talking about cap rates, and you went back to the other thing. So
no, but I don't want to get into this too much, but I just heard you say that for this particular property, you trust the owner's statement, but for the subject property, you do not trust the owner's statement. Is that correct?
For the cap rate report here is what we went by here.
Those are my questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Harden.
No questions that haven't been asked.
Mr. Tarian.
No questions, thank you.
I have no questions either. So Mr. Neufeld, would you like to present your rebuttal, please?
Thank you. And I'll just sort of save some time here. And I got to tell you, I'm not, I wouldn't say lazy, but I produce one report and then I'll read into the to the board the excerpts that I think are pertinent. In this particular case, the rebuttal I presented, I'm just dealing with the cap rates that the assessor brought up, starting on page 3 and in the industrial. 90 Park Lane, page 4 indicates that it was owner occupied and it was a product of a merge. That's the middle of the page. So that's not a cap rate sale. That's a merge. 225 Watt, as you can see, was not an industrial. It was a training and consulting place. So it's not quite industrial. 333 debates, we never addressed. It appeared to be on the mark at 7.44%. 1100 Waverly is on page 8, 9, 10 of our report, and further. This is the questionnaire Colliers managed at the time, and in the red we pointed out on page 9, 1100, 1120, 1140, 1146 Waverly Street, and page 10 says we expressly prohibit use of this data for the creation of capital rates or rates of return, as this data was not created for that purpose, nor was it produced for any sale or at the time of any sale. We're trying to be very clear that the concept of using income and expense forms is very misleading. If the city is going to provide these rates, there's a degree of due diligence required, which is outlined on page 1 and 2, which is verification. None of this is verified. You don't get a cap by reading a form. That is well below standard. The truth of the matter is that 1100 Waverly was 95% occupied by Manitoba Hydro, who vacated it. And then it was leased back up. So the statements that the assessor has were during lease-up period, when they were suffering 40-50% occupancy. Or vacancy, I should say, entirely misleading. Now, we happen to know, because Colliers did the lease up work, that the amount of leases that were written at entry level rates were in place. But at the time of sale, the lease up had been completed. Not all of them were portable to the city because of the time lag in it. And it was not 4.47%. As a matter of fact, the number is significantly higher because the lease up was based on entry level rents, and that all stepped up to a certain amount. We know for certain that the owner bought it on the income down the road. This is entirely misleading, but we did warn them, do not use this. And you can't use any of these without some actual verification, page 1 and 2. That's really all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. Assessor. Do you have questions?
Yes, I do.
I'm having a bit of a medical issue here. Can I just have 2 minutes?
Okay, sure.
Thanks. I'll just leave.
Okay, just a short 2-minute recess.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I believe, were we at questions for Mr. Neufeld?
Yes.
Okay, please proceed.
Mr. Neufeld, on your rebuttal, on page 2, section 5.5, acquisitions or divestments by large property owners. Acquisitions or divestments by large property owners, pension funds, or real estate investment trusts, in other words, REITs, that involve multiple parcels typically should not be considered for analysis. That's in your rebuttal, so I'm just wondering why you use the slate portfolio. Additionally, in the second last paragraph, right in the middle there, regardless of whether parcels are contiguous or multiple parcels, any multiple parcel sale that involves multiple economic units generally should not be used in valuation or ratio studies. So can you just explain why you're using the slate portfolio and the multi-roll for the cap rate there, evidence?
On page 1, it says IAAO, International Association of Assessing Officers. These are the assessor's standards. This is an organization the Winnipeg Assessment Department belongs to, I believe. And this is what they're directed to do. And the reason being, these are mass appraisal standards where the degree of due diligence is not done as often. So rather than get into make mistakes or spend additional labor in investigating, they say just don't use them. That is not my standard. My standard reads differently. My standard says do your due diligence or don't use it. And that's the one I stick to.
I have no further questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harden.
No questions.
Mr. Theriault?
No questions, thank you.
And I have no questions either. I believe that concludes the evidence. Is there a need for summary?
A brief.
Mr. Assessor?
Yeah, I'll just end by saying, taking into account the actual rent stated by the owner, whether or not you use our square footage or not, or if you use the owner's square footage, we're still assessing it lower than what is reported by the owner. The state of the industrial real estate Winnipeg and the state of the industrial real estate market in Winnipeg, especially in the south end of the city, over the last several years, there's been more users than available space. I think we are being equitable at assessing the value at $3,284,000. And I think our cap rates are good, and I think our shortfall study is good, and we're just asking for confirmation. And also the land transfer of $1.6 million and the construction value 1.1 million, and for a total of 2.7. That was in 2000. I think by reference date of 2018, I think we are pretty close to what the market would be supporting for this property, and I respectfully ask for confirmation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Neufeld?
Yes, thank you. The land transfer, which is a generic term because all real estate is land, according to Manitoba land titles, was set at, I think it was 1.5, 1.6 million. The permit predated it. The assessor provided no compelling evidence to say that the building wasn't already built at that point in time. And so I think that's a bit of an improper thing on his side. But I think the real issue with that is we do have a build-to-suit project, and without compelling evidence to determine that the assessor didn't determine if it was based on market or was cost recovery. So I think both parties agreed that they weren't going to be using the actual rent. So I don't know why that's coming up now. The issues that are bothersome on this are the square footage, for one. Now, throughout all the stuff you've heard today, at one point, the assessor relied on nothing but income and expense returns to determine that my cap rates were no good. However, for the subject, he determined I'm not going to use the income and expense form. I don't think he displayed a knowledge of what PP&E does in their permits. This is, the two are not related to rentable area. The market determines rentable area. You know, on my first break, I ran into one of our industrial agents and I posed the question to him and he laughed at me. He says, "That's ridiculous. Nobody wants a stupid mezzanine. It takes away from a good space below. That's what we're selling." And that's the bottom line. Nobody wants the mezzanine. They're working on equipment. It's accessory use that detracts from the real value. It takes away from the value of the space under it. So essentially, let's put this in real terms. If the rent, as the assessor says, is $8 on the building, and then he takes half of it and splits it in half, you don't create value. You create a mezzanine that's probably going to rent for $4, and the space under it that's going to rent for $4. You don't double the value. That's just an artificial concept. People are paying for high cube space. That's why you get the rents that you that they hit. That's just common sense, and that's the business practice that's been in our city and province and country for as long as real estate has been practiced. Now, the other issues which we disagreed on, and yes, we disagreed on everything. I think the genesis for that was the concept of the city determining that there were no such thing as non-recoverables. At that point, they began doing evaluation that strayed from the market, and we no longer had any confidence in their ability to determine market standards. There was far more general agreement on things in the past, but in 2020, this changed, and so in all good conscience, we cannot live with what they're doing. It's just wrong. The capitalization rate, it's on the outskirts of Winnipeg. It's a poor prospect for as an investment. It's a user property. They put it at the low end of the scale. Their support information is suspect. The last thing I want to say is I'm going to watch my words very carefully. I'm very troubled by page 5 of the assessor's rebuttal. I think that some investigation should be done on whether or not the purpose of his contact with Slate was as it says. I don't know if it is or isn't what he says it is, but I don't think that if you make a personal inquiry with somebody on their personal investment goal, it comes into the evidence at a hearing. That's the side of this equation. If someone says, "Well, it was personal inquiry," it doesn't go into evidence. It's a personal thing. So to introduce it into evidence may be an improper usage. And we will be following up on it. I'm very disappointed with it. And that's all I have to say. And I do have to mention, I had a minor physical setback last night, and it's a chronic issue I have. I do have to run out one more time. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I think if that's done with your summary, then what we're going to do is we're going to take an hour recess
Oh, okay. That's
right
fine.
now then for lunch break, okay?
That's great. Thank
So
you.
we'll be back at 12:30.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. We will be beginning our hearing for this afternoon. We have a new panel member, Mr. Marcel Laurendo. So right now we are beginning with number 5 on the docket, 73 Packen Road. Mr. Sesser, please proceed when you're ready.
Okay, so roll number 0605312700. Address is 73 Packman Road, owners Cougar Developments, Inc. Roll year is 2022, reference date is April 1st, 2018. Assessed value is $2,530,000. Parcel use is industrial warehouse. Number of buildings is 2. Number of premises is 5. Number of stories is 1. Actual year built ranges from 1981 to 1985. We're using an effective year built of 1982. Wall heights range from 16 feet to 18 feet. Zoning is M2 general, manufacturing general. Land area is 87,975 square feet. Plan area is 26,598 square feet. The gross floor area is 26,598 square feet. Leasable area is 26,555. Land to plan area is 3.31 to 1. On the following page, subject property leases are actually listed on page 14. So there's 3 tenants. It looks like they're paying semi-net rent. And then on page 3 are my comparables. So all comparables are flex industrial warehouse, such as subject. They're located in the same market region as the subject. All leases are current in relation to the reference date, with the last comparable 121 debates having the lease start date on the reference date of April 1st, 2018. Year built ranges from 1961 to 1990. Wall heights range from 11 feet to 24 feet. Leasable areas range at different intervals from approximately 2,900 square feet to 5,900 square feet to compare the different leasable areas, premises on the subject property. And net rents range from $6 per square feet to $7.25 per square feet. On the following page is our workup. We're utilizing an overall net rental rate of $6.58 per square feet. We're allowing for 2.5% vacancy loss, 2% non-recoverable expenses, and $3.75 for vacancy shortfall per square foot. This results in an NOI of $164,459. We're utilizing a cap rate of 6.5% to take into account the age, condition, and the market region of the subject. This results in a assessed value of $2.53 million. So on page 8 is the map of the subject and the comparables. So you'll notice all comparables except 2 are exactly right where the subject property is. On page 9, there's aerial views of the property. Page 10 is street views. And then on page 11 is a income expense statement. Now you'll note the 12 months ending is January 31st, 2018. So I put in the one from January 31st, 2017 also on the following page. page 13. On page 15, it looks like there was an appraisal done back in, I guess this would have been back in November 2017. So on page, I've just put some excerpts in it. Page 17 is the summary. So effective date was April 1st, 2016, and the
I'm sorry, I would like to object at this point in time. I would like the assessor to present evidence that he has permission to use this. I know it's copyright protected.
This was supplied to the city of Winnipeg by the owner.
By both the owner and Mr. Brawadi.
Yeah, this was supplied to the city by the owner. I'm not sure about Mr. Brawadi.
He has a copyright on this. That's standard practice in the Appraisal Institute. Does the assessor have permission from Mr. Brawadi to use?
Can you show me where Mr. Brawadi has?
I'm asking the questions. Do you have permission from Mr. Brawadi?
I don't have permission from Mr. Brawadi.
I would ask that the board strike this from the record.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to speak to the board for a minute. Kara?
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. We have reviewed this and determined it is part of the public record as it was previously used in a hearing. So it will stay in evidence. Please continue, Mr. Assessor.
Okay, so I just wanted to point out that on page 16, the final estimate value was 1.878 in 2016. And on page 30, you can see that there was two different approaches to value that were investigated, and both of them were pretty much similar in the value in 2016. So, and then on page 39, this is the board revision order from 2018. So the board reduced our assessment from $2,082,000 to $1,947,000, and that was based on a verbal recommendation of the city at $5.5 per square foot and a rental rate, the recommendation was based on $5.5 per square foot net rental and the cap rate of 6.5%. So, and that, the 2018 assessment was also based on the reference date of April 1st, 2016. So now for 2020, reference date April 1st, 2018 for assessment, roll year 2022, we're estimating the value to be 2.53 million. And looking at our comparables, which are all flex warehouses, just like the subject, I think we are pretty close to what the market is supporting, and I would respectfully ask for a confirmation of that value, and I'm open to questions now.
Thank you very much. Mr. Neufeld, do you have questions for the assessor?
Yes. You said the wall height was 16 to 18. Is that an exterior measurement?
I'm sorry. I can't answer that. I'm not aware.
And you were calling this a flex warehouse. What is your definition of flex warehouse?
I don't have the definitions in front of me, but the flex warehouse usually comprises of some office and some warehouse.
You're not aware.
Some finished, but this would be less than 20% finished office space, and the rest would be warehouse space.
Okay, well, you're not aware that a flex warehouse definition in the market is 27-foot minimum interior clear?
I'm going by what the city has classified this property as, which would have probably come from PP&D.
PP&D, okay, well, that's strange. So are you asserting then page 3 that you're calling all of these flex warehouse as well?
They're all flex warehouses, yes.
On page 4, you have 5 rental records, but the rent roll only shows 3 tenants. Why do you have a 5 on page?
When we inspected the property, there was probably those premises in use. So I take it that one of the tenants is using more square footage.
On page 3, your comparables range in size from 2,940 square feet to 5,880 square feet. The subjects range from 5,380 square feet to 14,876 feet. Are you trying to say that a 4,000 square foot rent is going to be the same as 14,000 square feet?
Sorry, give me 1 second. So we're going by the number of premises and what they are. So maybe one tenant is taking up 2 units.
Well, it's a market question. Is a tenant who rents 2 units going to get the same rate as 2 tenants each?
The smaller the leasable space, the more expensive the rent per square footage.
Okay, and that's model driven, that concept?
I think that's market driven.
Well, it's what the model does though, isn't it?
The model represents the market, yes.
But the model's policy is smaller space is higher rent.
Mr. Nufa, I'm not aware how the model works, so I know the model is a representation of the market, and in the market, smaller leased properties or smaller leasable areas rent for more than larger leasable areas.
Well, I think you're confusing the fact. We don't care that you say the city thinks they're doing market. The point is you're using the model, correct?
I'm using the model.
And does the model apply a higher rent for smaller space?
I couldn't answer specifics to the model.
Well, if one looks at the rent applied by the model on page 4, does not that statement?
Okay, I think this has been asked and answered already.
I found it evasive, I'm sorry. I'm just asking how the model worked.
I believe the assessor said he didn't know the specifics.
Okay, all right. And you said earlier that this was a semi-gross rent, correct?
That's what it shows from the income expense that they have submitted.
Okay, on page 12, I'm just wondering what you make of the column under monthly rent. And it has some figures, 520, 545, 545, 545. Is that the semi-gross amount?
Yes, and then the annual recoveries for tax.
And okay, it's not all recovered. Now, did you review the statements on this property? And I'm referring to pages 11 and 13.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did, and I found the property management and administration to be pretty high, but I'm not sure why. I've never seen property management of 56% and 63%.
Sure, and I can see your point. Now, if you subtracted that in its entirety, would not the NOI be still only about $110,000?
I'm not sure what you're getting at.
Math calculation, page 11. 109,000 for property management, NOI 1,500. If it's added back in, your NOI would be 111,000. Is that?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? The NOI on page 11.
Well, you stated that you thought the property management was a bit high, and you won't find a disagreement from that. But did you attempt to stabilize it by
No, this is, I haven't stabilized anything. This is what they've sent in and this is what is being used, so.
But even if you added back in the property management and amortization, the NOI is still in the ballpark of 115,000 a year, isn't it?
I haven't worked out the calculation.
Okay, well, I'm sure the board can read it. And your NOI with a vacancy is 164,000. Theirs adjusted without a vacancy is up 110 to 115,000. You disagree with that?
Sorry?
Your NOI after vacancy is 164,000. The actual NOI without a vacancy ranges between 110 and 115,000 if you add back in property management and amortization. Do you agree with that?
I don't know what you're getting at. So our NOI is 164. Okay, so I'm there with you. Now what are you saying?
That that's after vacancy. If you go to pages 11 and 13.
Yes.
And add
Well, Mr. Neufeld, we're working with market, not actuals here. So I'm not sure what you're trying to get at.
That's argument, okay? I'm just asking a math question. 109,000 added back in, 3,400 added back in, 1,500 declared. In my mind, that's about 114, 115,000 in NOI with a zero vacancy. Do you agree with that on page 11?
If that's what you say, I haven't worked out the calculation.
Okay. This appraisal that you brought forward, what's the assessment department's market difference between 2016 and 2018?
I'm not sure. I didn't work on the 2016 reference. The 20.
You don't have those bulk statistics?
Sorry?
You don't have those bulk statistics? Every assessor we ask says, well, it raised by a certain percent.
No, I don't have them.
Okay. So what you're saying though is that if you're relying on this $1,878 and now you're at $2,530,000, that you're saying that the market increase was $650,000, which is about 30%. Is that what you're saying?
If that's what it works out to.
Okay. On page 20 of this report, under property rights, you'll note that it says leased fee estate. Is that what we used for valuation?
I didn't do the report. I'm putting it in there to see what the other appraiser did.
Well, it's your evidence.
Okay.
You're producing a report that's the leased fee estate. Isn't that correct?
Okay, where are you looking, sorry?
Page 20.
Yes.
Under property rights.
Okay.
So you produced a report that's the least fee, is that correct?
Well, I didn't produce the report. I've included the report in my evidence. So
you're saying you're not responsible for your evidence?
Mr. Neufeld, I included the appraisal in my evidence.
Right. Of a lease.
So another appraiser came in and valued the property and came up with a number for 2016.
Okay, let's clarify the question. In your evidence, you produced to support your value an appraisal based on the leased fee. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not supporting my value with the appraiser. I'm just saying that's what the appraiser came in at, and you can see because you're coming in at 1.42 million. So I'm not sure where you come up with that.
You're arguing with me again. I'm just asking you. This is your estimate.
Okay, I'm stopping this right here because we're getting off track. Okay. Mr. Neufeld, do you have questions about the assessor's evidence.
I'm assuming he has to take responsibility for his evidence. I'm asking if he's taking responsibility for filing a report that didn't meet what we're supposed to be talking about today. I think that's a fair question. And I'm getting answers that are, well, I didn't write it. That's not a fair answer. He put it in. Can he just accept the fact that he put it in? That's all I'm looking for.
Well, I think it's evident that it's included there.
Now that you say it, that's fine. That's all I was looking for. Yeah.
Are those your questions?
No, I sorry I had another one. You made me forget.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
It's okay. I think the rest, it appears that the rest of the evidence is for issues we've been over already. So, so those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Harden, do you have any questions for the assessor?
No questions.
Mr. Lorendo?
No questions.
Okay, I have no questions either. Mr. Neufeld, please proceed with your evidence.
Thank you. So first of all, this is a warehouse. This is not a flex warehouse. Flex warehouse is, as we discussed in the last hearing, something that was built to accommodate office or industrial use, 27-foot ceiling height, so it can be subdivided and they can add an extra floor and turn it into an office. It's a different product. Something like this would be represented by buildings like the brewery on St. James site, the sites on Caniston. This, you can see from the pictures the assessor submitted, is just warehouse. Nothing fancy about it. A flex denotes the ability to adapt to that usage, and they're also only found in certain geographic locations. They're not found on Paquin. Paquin is, again, a working neighborhood. So what we did is we looked at a rent. We calculated about $5.19 a square foot, which is the actual rent. We looked at the statements, and we actually agreed on one point. There's something wrong with the property management fee, and we changed that. We adjusted it, and we didn't include the amortization. And our calculation on potential income was about $137,000, and that's looking at these 2 years. After that, the calculation on the value was the same as the previous one, and then we capped it at 8.5 as it is a working warehouse. And based on what I submitted earlier for actual cap rates for actual industrial sites, we think that the 8.5 represents that. I don't have a doubt that there may be some flex warehouses, real ones, that are capping as low as what the assessor has, but those are not the same product, and that's essentially what's wrong with this appraisal. That's my presentation, and I really hate to be a broken record, but I've been sick all night, and I have to run again, and it's just
Okay.
It was a surgery issue that.
It's fine. You don't have to explain. Just go. Okay. Okay, we'll just take a short recess. Are we back online?
Yes, we're live.
Okay, perfect. I believe we were, Mr. Assessor, do you have questions?
Yeah, just a couple. Mr. Neufeld, you're taking the building as a whole instead of the individual premises to work out the market rent?
No, we've just listed it as a whole. We just took a blended rate from a calculation of our estimate of the actual income. The units could have different rental rates. We just haven't bothered with them.
So your industrial rates, so were they in a similar premise size that you calculated from?
You're saying the comparables?
Yes.
Yeah, well, they would roughly occupy sizes from 14 to 15,000 square feet. And we have a number of them in the tables. They're a bit out of order, but on page 4, you would look at the top 10 or so going up to about 20,000 square feet. And you can see they range from $4 to $5.89. And then on page 5, there are the smaller ones, and you would be looking at the say from 5,000 feet to 10,000 feet, and they're ranging from $3.72 to $6.
Okay, and is there any in the immediate area of the neighborhood of the subject?
Well, St. Boniface Industrial, I'm just looking here. Dugald, let's see, Mission, there's some of the larger ones in the area. There are some in there, the two I mentioned.
Okay, those are all the questions I have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harden.
No questions.
Mr. Lorendo?
Mr. Neufeld, during your questioning of the assessor, you talked about this not being a flex place because of some report. Flex warehouse, pardon me. You didn't include anything in here, did you?
Include definition of flex, or
Yeah, the definitions that you were asking about.
actually, I think I do have our definition table on page. Yeah, I do have some information on that. On page 23 is the definitions that Colliers uses for industrial. And so the single or multi-tenant, you'll notice that steel frame, precast concrete, tilt up, investment grade covenant strength, and so these are flex definitions on page 28. We have a write-up on industrial differences, and at the bottom of the page, the heading reads industrial. And we have a flex newer, and investment grade is good, supply demand average good, statement reliability very good because they're usually owned by REITs, and the premium rates for best product 675 to 775, high ratio of office and or retail. And what we're dealing with is a couple down. We're just talking about warehouse in the middle, which investment grade is low. Good demand, good supply, statement reliability was very low, and obviously you can tell by looking at this one with the high management fees. I think the rents are fairly reliable, but some of the expenses. Obviously, someone who just doesn't know how to write out, and he just put everything he had, and we classify those usually 1 to 3 points higher on our cap rate scale than the top rates, and it depends on the utility. Utility is expressed by ceiling height generally. So the 1618, the assessor says, is an exterior measurement. So that means clear, we're looking at probably a 14 to 16 foot ceiling height after subtracting the trusses, and that's pretty poor utility. And if you look at the outside pictures, you can see that that height's borne out. And the other problem with utility on the pictures, and this is my page 2, is if you're talking about flex space, one of the things you need is space to move your semi-trailer around. And our subject does not feature that. So it's a small lot industrial without semi-trailer maneuvering space. You'll notice there aren't any semis on the site. So that's what makes it a poor choice. Thank you.
Okay, and I have no questions either. So I guess, sorry, I believe you had some, sorry, I'm just getting to it. Sorry, some rebuttal evidence for this. So
it was the same as earlier presented, and it was
right. However, Mr. Lorendo was not here earlier, so perhaps could do a high-level summary of the rebuttal.
Essentially,
I heard it on YouTube though, Rocky, so if you don't want to, that's fine by me.
As well, there's also the assessors, so.
Well, it's the chair's call. I'll be very brief.
Well, wait. The assessor should.
Has Mr. Lorando reviewed my rebuttal? Has he heard what
I've already scanned over it, and I was watching part of the show this morning.
Okay. Okay, well, maybe I'll just go quickly over it. So the slate portfolio, it was a portfolio sale. Some of the properties that are included in the cap rate report provided by the applicant were not included in the sale. And then if you scan through it, you can see my evidence that some of the reported cap rates are not what the owners are saying the cap rate they calculated are. So other than that, it was... that's basically it for it's all cap rate rebuttal.
Thank you. Mr. Lorendo, did you have any questions?
None.
Okay, Mr. Neufeld, would you like to summarize yours? If you feel it's necessary.
I just imagine the assessor should go first if he cares to.
No, I think I'm good. It's all about cap rates, as I just mentioned. So.
Thank you. Then I'll just quickly go through this. It's not all about cap rates. It's about rents and costs and cap rates. The mistake from the beginning was to mistakenly call this flex space. It's nothing of the sort. It's just poor quality industrial without the room to put a semi-trailer into it, which lowers its ability to earn.
Sorry, were you talking about rebuttal or are you summarizing?
We're talking about summarizing the rebuttal.
Oh, summarizing the rebuttal.
For Mr. Lorendo.
Oh, well,
yes.
Okay, well. Sorry about that. Basically, page, the assessor puts forward some sample of cap rates. Page 3 of my rebuttal, I have them summarized. 90 Park Lane was a merger. It wasn't a sale. 225 Watt was not industrial. We don't have a question on the rate, but it wasn't industrial. A picture is showing it on page 4. 1100 Waverly was 95% rented by Hydro, and at the time of sale, it was being absorbed back into the market. The actual cap rate we know to be much, much higher. If this was impacted by high vacancy and entry-level leases on pages 18 to 22. Colliers who manage the property expressly denied that the assessor should be using these to work out cap rates because they're not reliable and not provided for this purpose. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lorendo, did you have any questions about that from Mr. Neufeld?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now do either party have need of a summary?
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Neufeld?
Oh, yeah, okay, I started that before.
Yes.
Rents, costs, and cap. It's just a poor quality warehouse without room to maneuver your trailers on. It's not a great product. That they're even getting $5 a foot is probably a great achievement. The rent rolls, although the management is overstated, the rest is rather reliable and indicates that a rent in the low $5 range, which they're achieving, is fair and also supported by market rents. The expenses, we're using actual market expenses as well as actual shortfall rates. The cap rate is not a flex warehouse. It is an industrial rate, a building that is not pretty. And you saw even the pictures that the assessor brought from this appraisal were don't show a flex warehouse with lots of nice office space and atriums and fountains. It shows big cans of paint and boxes and a truck and safety vests. So there is a difference, a vast difference. Investors are looking for the flex warehouse with good rental covenants. These things are rented by multinational corporations, which are seen as good investment risk. They don't want local tenants. They will penalize the caps on local tenants because that's just the way the market works. The assessment department seems to have one version of cap rate, when in fact in the world there are multiple types of cap rates, and that's what's wrong with this assessment with this. And lastly, I did question the idea of using somebody else's appraisal, but you know what the assessor's demonstrated is that he believes there's a 60% increase in value over 2 years. Everybody knows that didn't happen. It's his evidence, not mine. So that's what he's telling you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next matter on the docket today is 237 Lowson Crescent.
Okay, so roll number is 100064264000. Address is 237 Lowson Crescent. Owner is 1007970 Manitoba Limited. Roll year is 2022. Reference date is April 1st, 2018. Assessed value is $681,000. Parcel use is industrial warehouse. Number of buildings is 1. Number of premises is 1. Number of stories is 1. Actual year built and effective year are both 2007. Wall height is 14 foot. It's zone M2, manufacturing general. The land area is 16,560 square feet. Plan area is 4,000. Same with the gross floor area and leasable area. Now, this building had sold, so we're not recommending that the burden of proof be placed on the applicant. We don't think the new owner should be penalized for the previous owner's mistakes or missteps. So that's not what we're asking for. And also on the other page, I'm sorry, I forgot to take out the values of a $1.2 million sale. I don't know what that entailed. I don't know if that's the building or if there was other things involved in it. So please disregard that number. I just wanted to put the sale in there to show that there was a sale after the reference date.
Okay, and you're not asking for
I'm not asking for
cooperation either.
No. So I'll just continue with on page 3 is my comparables. So all comparables are industrial properties located in the same market region as the subject. All leases are current in relation to the reference date. Year built ranges from 1972 to 2004. Wall heights range from 13 feet to 16 feet. Leasable areas range at different intervals from approximately 2,100 square feet to 5,500 square feet. And the net rents range from $8.50 per square feet to $18 per square foot. On the following page is our workup. So we're utilizing an overall net rental rate of $9.90 per square foot. We're allowing for a 2.5% vacancy loss, 2% non-recoverable expenses, and $3.75 for vacancy shortfall. This results in an NOI of $37,463. We're utilizing a cap rate of 5.5% to take into account the age, condition, and market region of the subject. So this results in a rounded capitalized value and assessed value of $681,000. So on page 8 is the map of the subject and where the comparables are located. At the bottom is an aerial view of the subject. Page 9 is the street views. On page 10 is the sales mailer. This is from 2007, and it was just for vacant land, as you can see from question 13 there. And it was an arm's length deal, and there was no other real estate included with it. If you look at question 16, they were going to construct a new building for $500,000 estimate. So on page 12 and 13 is the permits for that. So page 12, there's a foundation permit of $1.6 million, or sorry, $160,000. And then on page 13 is the construction of the building, a 400,000 square foot building, and the total project value is $400,000 on that. So on page 14 is the income and expense statement from 2015. So you'll see that this was prior to the sale, the recent sale, and so that was the last income and expense statement we had from the previous owner. And at that time, they were renting at $13.25 at a semi-net rent. And then on page 16, currently the building, I guess, is up for lease. So I've blacked out the lease rate because I believe this is post-reference. But there's some pictures of the interior and the exterior. There's a plan there. So given the sale amount of $100,000 in 2007 for the land, the improvements of $560,000, we believe the current assessed value of $681,000 to be more than fair and equitable, and I respectfully ask that the board confirm this value. And I'm open to questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neufeld. Do you have any questions for the assessor?
In 1 minute. Sorry, I have to take a quick break.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. We will reconvene. Please proceed.
Thank you. On page 13, there's a permit, and it says at the top or in the middle, total project value $400,000, construction value $240,000. Are you sure that the 240 added to 160 from the previous page is 400,000? Are you sure that the total project value, the improvement was 400,000, or it was not 560,000 but 400,000?
It's different permits with different numbers. So the total project value on permit 2 is 400,000. And the declared foundation is 160, so that would total 560.
Well, both of them under declared construction value, 160, declared construction value 240. You're sure you're reading this right?
I have read permits before, so I'm pretty sure.
On page page 10, we've got a different number altogether, $500,000. Correct? And 500,000 would represent the 400,000 construction value plus the 100,000 for the land.
I'm assuming that is a estimated on the, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay. On page 14, so their NOI as full was $30,400 when they had a tenant in there. Is that correct?
Sorry, again,
Their NOI on page 14
right,
was $30,435.
yes.
And at the bottom of the page, it shows that as of the reference date, that tenant was still under lease. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, this is the last income expense statement that was submitted by the previous owner, so we didn't get any statements after that.
Well, sure, but it says start date,
So,
end date, July 2018. Based on that, it was in place?
well, I'm not sure because we hadn't received any income statements after that. So at the time in 2015, this is what was stated.
To the best of your knowledge, it was occupied until after the reference period then?
I'm unaware because, like I said, there was no income expense statements submitted.
Well, when was it put up for sale? At the end of the lease?
No, I put this in there to show what the lease was generating at the time in 2015. So I don't know what the lease was in 2016 or 2017 or 2018.
Well, sorry, you had put in, and I just want to find this, the flyer for offering it for release for sale. Is that correct?
Right.
That was on page, I lost it.
16, 17, and 18. I believe this is a Collier's
Right.
listing, and yeah, so
What's the date of this offering?
this would be post-reference, and that's why I blocked out the.
That's fine, but I'm just wondering how it coincides with the lease. That's all. Was it offered at the end of the lease?
I'm not sure. As I mentioned, I haven't seen the income expense statements after 2015.
And do you know the current use?
I do not.
On your cap rate, your table, page 6, indicates that your 20th percentile, 6.34, and this is below that percentile. For what reasons can you go below?
Well, if there's a newer client, if it's, or sorry, a newer building, if the, well, I'll just read out some of the definitions from Collier's. So we would consider this a Class A. It's a newer building with a high quality steel construction. It's good mechanical and electrical systems in there, high ceilings, good loading capacity. So it would be a Class A, and it's a newer building. And I'm sure you know what the rent is that you're listing it for. So it's quite higher than what we are saying it is.
So you're suggesting that the Collier's information, in this case on the building, is satisfactory.
I'm not suggesting anything, Mr. Neufeld. I'm just stating.
city's definitions on why it falls below the percentiles, not somebody else's. Do you know why it falls below?
Quality, the quality of the building, the date it was built, the region it's located in, and the type of tenant that it could attract would say what kind of cap rate is applicable to the subject.
Now, are you familiar with the relationship between interest rates and capitalization rates?
I don't have that in front of me, Mr. Neufeld.
So you're saying you're not aware?
It's not in my evidence, so I don't know.
Okay, I'm asking on your professional knowledge. Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harden?
Okay, I'm just gonna ask again about the cap rate. The 5.5 is the lowest possible cap rate?
Yes, that would be the, yes.
Is that based on the size of the,
Size, location, the type of tenant it would bring in, and the amenities available to the subject property.
wouldn't the size limit the number of people that are, I mean, you're looking basically for a small, person looking for a small premise, and so you're eliminating the larger end of the marketplace. Wouldn't that be true?
It does have a good land to plan area. It's over 4. So yeah, that's.
Okay. All right, no more questions.
Thank you. Mr. Lorendo?
Just give me 1 second to get back to. Is there 2 buildings on this property?
I think it's just one building, and there's a. Give me 1 second.
There's an existing building in the back there. What is that?
I don't believe that's on the. Are you talking about page 8, the right photo?
Well, if you go to page 16, what the you presented. It shows it says proposed building 4,000 square feet.
Yeah, that's a different parcel altogether, I believe.
That's a different parcel than, so you're talking about the one that says existing building?
No, that's, yeah, the existing building is a different parcel altogether. If you look at page 8, at the bottom left-hand corner.
Page 8?
Yeah, bottom left-hand corner, that's the subject property parcel boundaries there.
So the other one on top of that where it says CrossFit is the same building, correct, on the front?
The building at the bottom is the one that's in question. So the proposed building 4,000 square feet.
The proposed building 4,000 square feet.
Correct, yes.
Because they're just saying it's proposed building because they're leaving it blank, correct?
Yeah, the blank is just the other parcel lot there.
Oh no, this is the one that's rated Rothwell. If you go to that sheet that you presented from, because you got Lawson here, Rothwell here, and this is the building, the one that says proposed building 4,000 square feet is sitting right on this piece of property at that corner, correct?
Correct. The proposed building is in the corner, yes. And that's the building that we're assessing. It's built.
So it doesn't fill the entire lot then?
No, the
entire lot goes.
Okay, maybe I'm not explaining this correctly. So if you look at my page 8,
Yeah.
Under the heading subject parcel boundaries.
Page 8?
Yes.
Yeah.
Subject parcel boundaries.
Yeah.
So that section there On page 11 is, or on page 16 is the bottom of that drawing there.
Okay, so if you see that awning that's there on that would be the south side of the building.
Yes?
It says CrossFit on one of the pictures in here, right next to that. Does it not? Yes, it does.
Yes.
So that is the same building.
Yes. But sorry, I thought you were talking about the existing building on page 16 in the diagram above the proposed building. That is the existing building above that diagram is not the building that we're talking about.
You're talking about this one that has the CrossFit sign on it. Do you know when these pictures were taken? Oh, this is a street view. When was this street view taken?
Street view is from October 2018.
So and this is a warehouse, 1 bay, 14 feet. Why would you choose the lowest cap rate out of all on this one?
This is how the model has chosen it, based on the parameters and the available amenities in the building.
What would the available amenities for this building be?
So it would be construction type, age of the building, location of the building, the type of tenant it could attract.
Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have no questions. They've been asked already. So we can move on to the applicant's presentation.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to point out that we had no historical information on this building. Our client purchased it. Our client is the Mercedes-Benz dealership. They purchased it because it was adjacent to their existing site and they needed to expand. They needed more storage area, basically. So right now, they're just figuring out what they're going to be doing with the building. The reading of the permits by the assessor, I believe, is a bit mistaken. The total project value is $400,000. The land sale was $100,000. They were into it for $500,000, as stated by the owner on page 10. That was the initial investment. Now, when we did our valuation, we didn't have the rent roll, and now that we do have it, I'm just going to want to make an adjustment to the actuals, and using the actual rent without allowance for vacancy is the income is $30,435. We are using a lower vacancy rate than the assessor because this is Fort Garry. If you're going to use higher vacancy rates in bad parts of town, you have to use lower ones in good parts of town, and it's a good part of town. And incidentally, when people talk about cap rates, so it's in a good location, you can't double dip. You either take it on the vacancy or you take it on the cap. You don't get it both ways. So we're using 1.8, lower than the assessor. And again, we're using non-recoverables because they do exist in the property, and at 5%. Our eventual NOI is therefore raised to $26,880. And I did inspect this property, and I think the office prepared this. My belief would be that the cap rate should be more aggressive than 8.5. I think a rate in the 7s is fair. There's really, I mean, I asked the assessor a question about cap rates relating to interest. Well, the problem is that bank interest versus cap rates, there should be an ability to make money on the spread. So if you're borrowing money at 3-4%, you need a cap rate of 6 to 7%. That's as simple as that. If you're an institutional user who can borrow money from pension funds or insurance companies and get it at 2%, maybe you can cap it at 6%. Or, but this property doesn't qualify for that. It would, before the misunderstandings about cap rates came forward, most appraisals required what's called the mortgage equity method, which was to look for a rate that's based on interest rates. And that's to double check the truthfulness of cap rates. Essentially what I'm suggesting here is that looking at bank rates, which for commercial properties are in the high 3s, low 4s, and adding a few points for profit taking makes a 7.5% rate. Our resulting value is $360,000. The rent, as I said, we're using what's in the rent we're going to use works out to $761 a square foot, and that's higher than anything we have in our table, but it is a better location, so it can get better rent. And again, that's just another factor. Good location, you're going to get higher rents, lower vacancy. Do you really think that you triple dip and get a better cap? No, you can't. That's just bad appraising. You can't triple dip, double dip. The cap rate will be. What's interesting is that across the country, we're seeing even more continuity in cap rates across the country with national investment and then local market rates for rents and vacancies. And again, it's following the money markets. That would be our presentation. And incidentally, right now, it's being used. There were, when I was there, 3 City of Winnipeg trucks parked in there waiting delivery. So I guess maybe I should have asked for classification and liability on this. That's a joke. But thank you. That's my presentation. And I hope you have those numbers.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Susser, do you have questions?
Yes, so I'm sorry I missed, what are you stating that the square foot net rent should be, Mr. Neufeld?
I believe 761.
761?
Yes.
And where does that value come from?
60. Oh, 360.
Sorry, can you repeat that? You cut out for a minute.
761, which is $30,435 on 4,000 square feet.
Where did you get 761 from?
The actual rent.
The actual rent of, is it not up for rent currently?
Pardon me?
I'm just wondering where you got the 761. You have a listing that it's not rented currently. And so I'm just wondering where the 761 comes from.
In the reference year, April 1st, 2018, it appears to me that it was turning a net income of approximately $30,435.
Where did you get that from? Is it in the evidence?
It's the income and expense questionnaire that they filled out in 2016. We never had it because that was the previous owners.
So you have it. Is that correct? But we don't have it?
No, this is the evidence that the assessor put forward on page 4.
From 2015?
Yes.
Well, if you take 48,583 divided by 4,000, the net rent is 12. Semi-net is $12.
Semi-gross, which is not net.
Well, the only thing that they weren't collecting was utilities.
They weren't collecting insurance, property management, professional fees, maintenance, and repair.
And and I'm sorry, I lost your calculation. So you were at $7.61, and what was your non-recoverables rate?
5%.
And your cap rate?
7.5.
And where did that come from?
That was a verbal number that just looking at the site and thinking about the potential for it and the demand. That's just my opinion.
I have no further questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harden.
No questions.
Mr. Lorendo.
I must be getting hard of hearing. Mr. Greenfield, did you say 7.5 or 7% on the cap rate? I thought you said 7 earlier, had you not?
I said in the sevens, and no, you did hear that. I just used 7.5. It's. I said we should be a bit more aggressive. It's unlike the other buildings we've talked about today. Its usage is going to be higher. It's not a dirty working building.
Very what building?
Dirty working building.
Oh, dirty working.
That's my phrase for real industrial.
I was like, is that a new term? Dirty working building?
I guess so.
We have to have different industrial uses.
I'm not even going to go there. Okay.
Especially because the Winnipeg trucks parked in it. I'm done.
Okay, I have no questions either. Is there a need for summary on this one?
I'm good, thank you.
No thanks, none.
Okay, great. So we can move on to number 7, which is 2529 Inkster Boulevard. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Assessor.
Okay, so roll number 140-999-63100, 2529 Inkster Boulevard, 3M Investments, Innsbruck Incorporated is the owner. Roll year is 2022. Reference date is April 1st, 2018. Assessed value is $3,386,000. Parcel use is industrial warehouse. Number of buildings is 1. Number of premises is 1. Number of stories is 2. Actual year built and effective year built is 2008. Wall height is 28 feet. It's zone M2 manufacturing general. The land area is 120,919 square feet. Plan area is 25,890 square feet. Gross floor area is 29,730 square feet, and same with the leasable area, 29,730 square feet. Land to plan area is 4.67 to 1. So you'll note on the following page that there was a sale in January 22, 2008, 10 years prior to the reference date of $950,000. It's currently rented out at $14 net rent per square foot, and it is a step-up rent. And the income expense is located on pages 13 and 14. So on page 3 is my comparables. So all comparables are industrial properties located in the same market region as the subject. All leases are current in relation to the reference date. Effective year built is ranges from 1969 to 2014. Wall heights range from 16 feet to 24 feet. leasable areas range at different intervals from 15,000 to 50,000 square feet approximately. Net rents range from $8 per square foot to $9.95 per square foot. On the following page is our workup. So the leasable area of 29,730 square feet at $8.75 overall net rental rate. And I'll just note that that's $5.43 lower than the actual net rental rate that's collected currently or at the reference date. To be fair and equitable, we've allowed for 3.5% vacancy loss. Even though there's been zero vacancies since at least 2008, we're allowing for 2% non-recoverable expense and $3.75 vacancy shortfall. This results in an NOI of $237,049. We're utilizing a cap rate of 6% to take into account the age, condition, and market region of the subject. This results in a capitalized value of $3,950,817. However, there was a 15-1 settlement negotiated in 2020 roll year, which is also with the reference date of April 1st, 2018. The 2020 roll year spans the years 2020, 2021, and 2022. So because of that 15-1, we have lowered our assessment also to $3,386,000 for the year 2022. If you look on page 12, there's the 15-1 that was signed back in 2019.
Page what?
Page 12.
Thank you.
So on page 8 is the map of the subject and the comparables, and you'll note they're all in the Inkster, North Inkster area. Below that is the subject parcel boundaries. So it is a newer building. On page 9 is the overhead shots of the building. You can see there's a lot of overhead doors there, lots of room for trucks to move in and out of there. There's two entrance and an exit, I guess you would say. On page 10 is the other side of the building with more loading docks there. Page 11 is the street view of the building. And then on page 13, there's the income expense statement. Page 14, there's the rental roll at the bottom. And then on page 15 is the status of title. And I'll just point out that on page 17, you'll see that there is a mortgage of $3.3 million on the building currently, and that was from that was registered in 2018. There was also a permit dated 2008 with the total project value of $3,242,350. So in regards to the 15-1, I think both parties should be held to the, it's the same reference date, nothing's been changed. So I believe we're being fair, and I think the applicant should also, agree to what they signed. And that is my presentation, and I'm open to questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Neufeld, do you have questions for the assessor?
I swear this is the last time. I have to take a quick break.
No problem. Go ahead.
Oh my.
Your turn.
All right, we're back. We'll reconvene the hearing. Please proceed.
Thank you. The 15-1 agreement from 2020,
was representing the owner?
According to the 15-1 on page 12, it's MNP LLP.
Okay. Meyer Norris Penny, okay. The cap rate of 6%, so that's also below the 20th percentile?
Yes, it's a newer building. From the pictures, you can see it's got lots of land there to move around in. There's tons of loading docks there.
Have you been in
It's
the
office
building?
space, it looks like, in the front there.
Have you been in the building?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
We haven't been in very many buildings since the pandemic started.
I'm just wondering, were you aware that it was custom built for Watrous Power Systems for, it's a hydraulic fluid repair system company? You weren't aware it was built to suit?
No, I'm not.
You mentioned oh, I see. I see the. Sorry, I didn't see this. The agreement. On the mortgage, you mentioned on page 17. Did you see how many properties were covered by that mortgage?
Yeah, it's listed right at the top there, lot 5 plan 42041 WLTO.
Mortgage registration, page 17, mortgage registration 4969726/1. How many properties are on that mortgage?
1.
Do you have a copy of that?
No, I don't.
Why would you say 1 then?
I have researched it.
You're aware that a mortgage covers multiple properties, don't you? Aren't you?
It could.
My client tells me that it covers 2 properties in Winnipeg. So, are you sure about your statement?
Do you have something to say that it doesn't? I don't see it in your evidence.
Well, that's because not many people rely on a mortgage for value. But my question is the same. I'm asking if you're sure of it.
Well, I'll take your word for it if it does, but your client has signed a 15-1, which is very close to that value there.
What about the 15-1 that was signed for the previous 3 assessment cycles? Do you know what they were at?
No, I didn't look at the previous assessment cycle 15-1s. I don't know if they were or not.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harden.
No questions.
Mr. Lorendo?
When you're talking previous cycles, 2018 is the year we're dealing with today, correct?
We're dealing with roll year 2022, reference date April 1st, 2018.
Correct. So what was the value in 2018 on April 1st, 2018?
This is what we're at, $3,386,000.
That's what it was assessed for then?
I don't know what it was assessed for in 2018 roll year, but in the 2022 roll year is based on a reference date of April 1st, 2018. So we're saying on April 1st, 2018, that the value of this building is $3 million, or it's assessed at $3,386,000. And the
Were you the one who signed that agreement?
no, I wasn't. That was signed between, let me just see. Well, it's just signed by the city assessors.
Was there any negotiation that happened on it, or?
Well, yes, I'm sure there was, and that's why it went from the assessment of $3,951,000 to 3,386,000. So they cut it just under 600,000.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Yeah, I have no questions on that either. All right, so Mr. Neufeld?
Thank you. So the history on the site is until 2020, Colliers was representing them, and we worked for the owner, 3M. And for the 2020 period, the tenant chose to do their own appeals, and so we didn't do it any longer. And then I guess for some reason they imagine they fired Meyer Norris Penny, and they asked us to look at it. And I think that's just a typical reaction when they see how much their taxes went up from the previous year, because the previous year they were at an assessment of 2.8 million, and the settlement was at almost 3.4 million. That's the problem with the Manitoba time lag. People sign deals not knowing. They say, oh, yes, it was a good cut, but not realizing that the taxes went up substantially. And that's just human nature. The history behind this site is that when it was started, the company was called Watrous, and they struck a deal with 3M all across the country for a series of developments. So the rate that was signed for, the rate would be the same in Vancouver and Edmonton as it was in Regina and Winnipeg. It was a bulk deal. And to make matters worse, Winnipeg, they were on a short notice termination. And this site was the only acceptable one they could find. And funny story, but my one of my other clients owned the land, and he stuck it to him on the price. But so my point in telling you all this is that the factors that led to this were a business decision. They needed to be close to highway to Brookside and Inkster, and the only site available, and then a development deal. So over the years, there's never been a debate with the assessors on the paid rent. Everybody knew it wasn't a market-driven rate. And so I mean, I guess our issue with the assessment, I mean, I think that the rent number is showing lower than the face. For years, we put a rent on it of $7 because that was the activity in the neighborhood for properties like this. And we're going to, I would admit that I think that I have seen some higher rates coming up. Most of the higher rates, though, are coming from the Rosser development side, where a ton of new high cube space is coming on the market, and Canada Way is coming into its own. And so now the movement is away from Brookside to Canada Way, which links people up with the perimeter. It's no longer the Brookside access point. So I think it has diminished in interest. The other thing that happened on this site about 4 years ago is that the province decided for safety reasons to twin, and they cut off the access from the east. So to get in there now, when you're coming from the west and going east, you've got to go all the way down to Innsbruck and double back, and same with getting out. It's a bit of a hardship because I represent a lot of the companies in this neighborhood, and the median cut on Innsbruck weren't good enough for semi-trailers. Now, private approach people of the city did alleviate some of the problems, but it's still difficult to bring the B train in on these sites. And this business fixes hydraulics, and hydraulics are throughout trailer and tractor units. And the business on the other side is for Gary Industries who focus on brake and running gear. So this is a truck repair site. So they have seen a loss in access, especially with the pickup of use on Canada Way, which is why we're going to keep it down at $7. Had they maintained those approaches, then I think it could hit the assessor's number. And you'll note on the picture on my page 2, when I'm speak of the approach, you'll see that the Inkster Boulevard approach is no longer viable from the south side of Inkster Boulevard, and you have to come around Inksbrook. And this picture is dated because a median was installed on Inksbrook, and it's cost a little bit harder to get in and out. And another route that they're now faced with is to go all around Inksbrook and double back onto Brookside at an uncontrolled intersection. The other issue, again, we used what we felt was a market-driven vacancy rate, very similar to the assessor. So I really don't think there's any issue there. Our structural reserve, and which is based on roof replacement reserve, and a shortfall, which is our estimate of the actual. And you'll note again that the issue with this is that when a site has a higher assessment, the taxes are higher and the shortfall is not the same. So the city uses the same shortfall rate for every building, whether it be for an open smelter or for a flex warehouse. Everybody gets the same number. And it's a disadvantage to people who actually spend a lot more or have higher taxes. The subject is one of those sites. So we believe if you're going to have a shortfall rate, it's not a question of one size fits all. You've got to deal with the actuals. And the point became more acute as the city stopped allowing for non-recoverables. There was a fairly good sort of not agreement, but there was a good working relationship. We knew that some of the shortfalls were higher, but with the entire package, it seemed reasonable. And with the changing on the that the city did on non-recoverables, it just went so far away from market value. The cap rate we applied was 8%, and I think that again, this is probably my opinion. I didn't write this up. Is that we could be looking at a lower rate, likely around again 7.5%. I wouldn't go much lower than that simply because what I described. I don't like the future for this property, and the concept of capitalization is the idea of an. Yes, you can find a user who's going to pay high rents to get the greatest site for servicing highway road transport equipment. But now that's changed. And the equilibrium is shifting westward due to the new access point with the perimeter via Canada Way. Without stop signs, without only one traffic light versus the messy transportation system you faced in the city of Winnipeg. So we already know that there are going to be service providers constructing new facilities further west on Canada Way, and that's going to decline this area. And also a lot of Inkster Park as well as the high cube space moves away, which is why I'm not bullish on this particular location. So as I said, I think it probably could be a slightly higher cap, and probably at a higher cap of 7.5, that would be a value of $2,361,960, or rounded to about $2,360,000. And that's really all I had to say on this. Last.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm done.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I want to mention something here. I just noticed the last assessment, we had a cap 7.25, and we agreed to that, so that's reasonable as well. That's a bit higher value. So that's actually a value 2,443,406. It's rounded to 2,445,000. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Well, thank you very much. Mr. Assessor, questions?
Yes. Mr. Neufeld, Wajax has been the tenant there since 2008, is that correct?
They were originally called Watrous, and I think that's a division of Wajax, yes.
Okay. And has it been a step-up rent?
Yeah, it was a long-term negotiated rent from 2009. I'm just looking for the original information here. I have a lease. Yeah, it's a 15-year lease.
You mentioned prior 15 ones on this property. So you represented this property in 2012, rural year 2012, right?
Yes.
Which was based on the reference date of April 1st, 2010?
Yes.
And at that time, you signed a 15-1, which lowered the assessment from 2.541 million to 2.454 million. Is that correct?
Let me just double check those numbers here. 2010.
So the roll year 2012.
Yeah, and just have the whole file here. Second here. Yes, that's correct. 2,454,000.
So that was in 2012 based on the reference date of April 1st, 2010. And you believe since 2012 to 2018 reference year, the value has remained the same?
Well, it's gone actually up and then down with the road changes. This is a service industry. This isn't warehousing or a conventional building. This is designed for servicing road transport vehicles, and I work for a lot of companies like this, and the major issue with them is the best access to the highways is what drives their business, and I sense that they've lost the premium access to Canada Way. That's my concern here.
So Inkster, Oak Point Highway, Route 90 is not good road access?
Well, with the opening of Centerport, it's become the preferred traffic has migrated westward, and it's more than just the service vehicles. It's the warehousing as well. It's all. I mean, Rosser has last I checked about 4 million square feet of inventory coming on stream. And the losses are being felt all across the city, but mostly in Inkster Park, because the Rosser's offering better locations, and especially important is very low lag time on development. So someone wants to after, of course, their zoning was finally approved, but if someone wants to put a project in the ground, you will likely get approval in a few weeks, and usually it's very, very quick, unlike the city where it's sometimes 3 years before you can get a project going. So Winnipeg will see a decline, and Rosser has seen the increase.
Okay, just to clarify, the tenant has been leasing from 2008 and will lease until 2023, is that correct?
That's correct.
Those are all my questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Harden?
Okay, do you consider 15-1 agreements binding on the city for the entire assessment cycle? Would the city come back this year and say 3
$6,951,000.
Well, they can do that through supplementals, and when they sign an agreement, I suspect that they would have to prove something under 13.1 of the Act for a change.
Okay, and reading this agreement, it says, this agreement resolves all matters for which an application for revision may be or have been made to the Board of Revision in respect of the noted property for the years indicated. And the years indicated is the April 1st, 2018 market value.
Well, just there for the years indicated, but at the time it was signed, we didn't have a third year in our cycle. I know that's a minor point, but no one expected it to go for another 3 years. I wasn't involved with it whatsoever, and my opinion.
It's still the same owner.
Yeah, no, I know. I understand your point. I guess that is an issue that the board is going to consider, and all I can say is I wouldn't have signed it at that level. I would have insisted to be lower, but I think I'm more knowledgeable about what's happening in Center Port than other people. I've worked in it since it started, beginning with doing expropriation work and valuation work. So I have a greater feel for what's happening on value. Part of the Act, if you look at Section 13.1, says that when there's a change in the neighborhood, it could cause the assessor or the owner to make an appeal. It's one of the factors, a physical change in the neighborhood. And this is one of these areas where that actually did happen, with Canada Way finally opening up. And then the big one was the RM of Rosser, which took 7 years to get their bylaw read in. And the minute it happened, it, like I said, 4 million square feet almost overnight is coming up. So I guess my opinion would be Section 13.1 gives us reason to believe that there's been a change, and that's all I can say.
Okay, I have no more questions.
Mr. Lorendo?
You said the roadway from Inkster, the egress, they closed it?
Yeah.
When did they do that? Because I've got a picture here, 2021, May, and it's open.
No, Inkster, let's see. Well, I can tell you because I was there on behalf of ownership on it. It'd take me a few minutes to find it, but I represented 4 of the owners in with the engineer, the city. We opposed some of it. I think 2014 to 16 is when they put the median in.
It's 2021. Or the median in the middle of Inkster.
Right, yes.
They didn't close the entrance to the parking lot.
No, well, they shut it off from the south lane.
Yeah.
Then they put in some lights at Inksbrook. And then the next step was the median on Inksbrook.
That median on Innsbrook, they put that in there.
Yeah, and I thought was a 2018 problem, and the property owners asked that there be no median, and planning wanted a median. I don't know if I've got historical imagery on that.
Well, no meeting, they could have moved their egress up another 100 yards.
Yeah, I thought it was. I can't even find the damn place. Oh, here we go.
Do you have pictures of it in yours?
Okay, I'm looking at a picture dated, oh, there's no date on this. I see the median in it.
That's in yours.
Yeah, I think my picture on this is old. I'm just looking at Google Earth right now, and I see the median in. So this is in 2021. It was in 17. It was in. This is the Inksbrook median. 15. It was in. Okay, so my memory is faulty. So it was developed around.
What I'm getting at, Rocky, is that this was the agreement, the 15 one was signed after this was all done.
Yes, of course.
Why do you, I love these computers. Have these rents in that area gone down in the last 4 or 5 years?
The initial ones are softer, and a lot of development has been put on hold in favor of Rosser. There've been a few deals, but mostly like when the right space was available. For example, Manitoba took temporary space for COVID protection equipment, and that was a pretty good rate. But that's because this perfect size was available in a short term. But other than that, they've been fairly soft in the Inkster area. Whereas I'm surprised some of the rents in Rosser are like up at $14 market driven. For 6,000 square foot base, 100 by 60 with 28 clear. And it's the Winnipeg isn't able to compete with that.
But this building has 2 tenants, does it not?
No, it's a single building.
Single? You there? Single tenant?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, and all my questions have been asked. So, yes, is there a need for rebuttal?
I'm good, thank you.
No, thanks.
Is there a need for summary?
I'm good, thank you.
Just briefly, I mean, I think what we're seeing here is changing market patterns with the effective year really is 2017 when Rosser finally approved their bylaw, and then development just started happening. And by 2019 and 20, there was a lot of product going on the market. So we just see it shifting away from the Winnipeg side in favor of the Rosser side. They're able to offer better highway access and lower taxes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have heard all the items scheduled, and this hearing is now adjourned.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Have a great day.
You too.